last time.
Sorry, I'll try not to yawn too much.
All right. Is it live? Is it live? Hello? All right, it looks like it's live.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, we have Pierre in the chat. Darth posted in there. Before that, before we came on, we had White Cicada, Omega, Cyanidosiris, killing for anarcho-capitalist front, and Fishron wants me to run for president. So, how y'all doing, everyone?
You wouldn't get elected. Yeah, because.
Well, what a week it's been, huh?
Yeah.
What do we think about what's been happening?
Yeah, you wouldn't get elected though, Shane, because they'd be like, we want to impeach President Killian. Why? He's not letting us spend our money. Every time we tell him we want to spend money, he vetoes our bills.
Yep, that'd be it. They'd have to impeach me quickly to stop me from doing a whole. I was thinking about this, like things Trump could do if he loses to Biden, which looks likely now, although it's not a done deal, so the press should stop saying that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can talk more about that. But I was thinking about things that Trump could do on the way out the door, like pardon Julian Assange, pardon Ross Ulbricht, pardon Edward Snowden, just all these middle fingers that he could do. He could totally, dismantle, the executive orders around Obamacare, all of that, and just make a complete reset and make Biden have to do everything from scratch again.
He should appoint Ron Paul as head of the Federal Reserve. He has some really explosive ideas about what to do with the place.
Yeah. And here's another funny joke. As one final giant middle finger to all the press, he's like, and finally, just as a giant middle finger of any charges I've been accused of, I'm pardoning myself. Ha ha.
I'm not sure a president can pardon himself. But no. What he does is he does all of that like a couple of days before he leaves office. Then he resigns for the last 2 days. Pence is president, and then Pence pardons Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, Pence pardons Trump, and now they're all like, and now the left's like, oh, god damn it all. Yeah.
Oh boy, it's probably a good thing I'm not in the White House with all the damage I could cause. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
They think Trump's bad. They haven't met me.
Yeah.
Hello, JC Armitage.
Yeah. Or they're going to accuse you of taking power away from the people simply because you take political power away from the powerful labor unions and trade guilds and all that.
I can assure you, Yippee-O, Trump is not broke.
Yeah.
No, not even.
That's another thing too. Even if they do want to go after Trump post presidency, good luck doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll just jump on a plane, go to Switzerland or whatever, and just lay down and run his business from there until the government gives up trying to pursue him.
Well, it wouldn't be Switzerland. It would have to be someplace with no extradition laws. But
oh, yeah.
Yeah. That would actually have his business there as well.
Yeah. It's pretty funny because I saw this debate with someone, and they were talking about why we need to tax the rich more, and they say the reason why it never brings in more money because businesses will shrink their businesses or they'll even move away to avoid paying the taxes, and we're like, well, we should make that illegal. It's like, well, how are you going to do that?
Good luck fucking trying.
Yeah, the only way to make it illegal to flee a country for tax evasion is you would literally have to lock the country down and say no one's allowed to leave, and congratulations, you just became North Korea.
You speak North Korea.
It's like arguing that it's like arguing that we need to put a price ceiling on rent and then following that up with but you can't sell your rental property. You have to keep going. It's like, so you'll force landlords to operate at a loss until they go bankrupt and get repossessed. Is that what you want?
Well, yeah, actually, Pipsqueak, I believe I mentioned this before. Walter Williams brought it up pretty well. He said the best way to destroy a city without using bombs is implement rent control.
Yep.
Rent control.
All right, Dark Soul, yes, Donald Trump is the president until the 20th. And actually, no one's even voted for the president yet. That won't happen until the electors meet on December 14th. And I think December 8th. I've got a video covering all these
It's like,
deadlines.
all
December
these
8th is the safe harbor deadline for contesting votes. And the president isn't actually chosen until the first of the year. When the new Congress comes in, there's this big joint session where they officially count all the electoral votes, and it'll actually be Mike Pence who announces it.
What's the Great Reset?
All of these big news companies going, "Oh, Biden is president-elect." No, he's not.
Nope, not yet.
By every conceivable legal measure, no, he is not. Even Real Clear Politics, which is by no means a right-wing Trumpian organization, they said no, the press should not have called this election at this point.
Yeah.
Then you got the fucking audit in all the swing states that just magically flipped blue when they were light red the night before, but they said we can't stop counting yet. We'll do it in the morning. Suddenly flipped blue. Tens of thousands of dead people were voting for blue, and all kind of
there's things like that are suspicious but not conclusive. But the thing is, now we actually have sworn affidavits from people. Like there's an affidavit from one of the poll workers, I believe in Detroit, talking about the shenanigans going on there. There's an affidavit from a postal worker talking about how he was ordered to back post date ballots that were coming in late.
And then you had video footage of that stuff all over the place and getting deleted by YouTube, Google, Twitter, Facebook, and all these other. and Jack Dorsey got an ass chewing by Ted Cruz for it, and then he got another ass chewing.
I think all the stupidity broke Wes. He's laughing like a madman now.
We broke the shrimp po' boy.
Yeah.
I'm cringing. I'm cringing my head
Of course,
off.
it's really the system that's broken, and I'm hoping, if nothing else, this will wake people up to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's speaking of which, Shane, did you see that video I sent you about that fail that Top Tens did? It was called about mandatory voting. And he was like, well, yes, I do understand that there are some problems. As a whole, it would actually be really good. It's like, fun fact, and what's even funnier is that he tries to pull the democracy argument. He brought up, how there was this one study that labeled the United States as a quote-unquote flawed democracy, and it just makes me want to say, people, read Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. is not and was never intended to be a democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I go into that in that same video. I think I posted it on Friday or Thursday afternoon or something.
Full detail.
Yeah.
I did this. I used to do in debates with Democratic types. They was like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, one, a republic's supposed to accept that negative rights are given naturally to autonomous sapient beings that commit purposeful action. That's number one. Number two, they have baseline laws to protect those given negative rights. Never give them, protect them. You need to figure it. The constitutional republic is supposed to recognize that they need a baseline of freedom to express that in order to pursue that. The freedom to express that reasonability. And I went, and then I stayed. Listen, there's a bunch of separation of powers. The next difference is they're supposed to have the ability to allow minority and majority voices equal hearing, because direct democracy or representative democracies are tyrannical. Period.
What's ridiculous about it, Dark Soul, because he hasn't. I mean, anyone who understands how the process works can tell you that.
Please, Sentwin, don't get me started on cuties.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen images from that movie, and it already disgusted me. All I saw was the poster and what people said about it, and I read the synopsis, and that's just like.
Although from what I've heard, that clip that people sent around was doctored. Like, apparently the close-ups weren't really close-ups. The guy did, like, digital zooms to make it look like that and things like that. So
I don't know what was going on.
I don't know.
I mean,
don't trust anything like that. I've been on the internet long enough to know not to trust things like that. I'm still, I mean, come on, if there were anything to that, why wouldn't Netflix have been shut down by now? I mean, Netflix has this huge legal team that they should know, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, you know, that some of the stuff that people were accusing of is there, but I do agree it's still a sick movie, you know. I mean, if it was
because it all depends on what the emphasis of it is. I mean, there's movies that depict horrible rapes and murders that aren't promoting it. They're saying, you know, that that these are terrible things that are happening. So it really all depends on the emphasis of it. Again, I feel I have to remind everyone of the Magritte painting, The Treachery of Images, where he painted the pipe, and beneath it he wrote, "Ceci n'est pas une pipe." This is not a pipe. An image of something is not the thing. You know, whatever was going on there, those girls were actors shooting a movie. Now, what happened during the course of the movie, you know, I mean, it's certainly possible. I don't know anything about it, but it's certainly possible that they shot it in a way that there was no kind of, you know, psychological problems for them. They're pretending. They're just presenting it. They're not actually, you know.
The result is still borderline pornographic, though.
Still kind of reminds me.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that without watching the movie, and I'm not going to watch the movie. So there we are.
I saw a run through of it by SFO. He goes through the entire movie, points out all of the things that could be potentially ruled as pornographic by a judge. So like, don't watch this movie.
It's a movie, folks. Why the moral ground standing?
Yeah,
true,
I mean,
but it's still a bad movie. So yeah.
Again, not going to say that without seeing it, and not going to see it. So
yeah, well, I'm not going to.
That's where we are.
I will say this is that a lot of people say, well, how do you know the movie's going to be bad if you've never seen it before? It's like, look, sometimes you can tell by the trailer that you're not going to like the movie.
But here's the question. How many of us would even have heard of it if it hadn't been for all of that? Streisand effect, anyone?
Yeah.
It probably would have just been this, you know, back alley movie that, you know, didn't go anywhere. It was just kind of on. Netflix has a bunch of stuff that hardly anybody watches. So congratulations, you made it a lot more popular.
Somebody, Professor Jacobson Pimp said Cthulhu is the true Prez, and I replied to him, Cthulhu would be better than this retardation.
Oh, but you can't vote for him because he was created by H.P. Lovecraft, and everyone knows H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. That's why he needs to be erased from literacy history.
Right.
No joke. There's an actual movie to do that they want to erase. They want to erase H.P. Lovecraft, take away all the post-literary awards he had, all because he was a racist when he grew up in the early 20th century, when almost every white person back then was a racist.
When the progressives wanted to exterminate black people, you know, let's not forget that.
Oh no, yeah.
It's like H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. Yes, he was born in 1890. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck do you expect?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like trying to ban Mark Twain because Huckleberry Finn has the N-word in it.
Oh, yeah. N-word Joe. Nigger Joe, I think his name was, right?
Please don't get me banned from YouTube.
Every time that's brought up, every time that's brought up, I'm just reminded of the Rainbow Six Siege, people getting bans from that game from saying the Spanish word for black or the French word for slow down.
Or the Latin word for black, yeah.
The PC shit's just.
I mean, people were talking about, you know, my video, The Niggardly Son, even though it's not even remotely close to that. Yeah.
The emotional manipulative tactics, fuck bastards will pull.
Yeah.
I have to laugh.
And whether it's racism or pedophilia or whatever, I always have a feeling that the people who complain the most loudly about it are the ones who are trying to hide it themselves.
Well, yeah. Why do you think? Well, yeah. Why do you think Bill Clinton passed Megan's Law without giving it proper legal thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I want to do if I have a time machine. I want to go back in time to when Megan's Law was passed and start bringing up all the affairs Bill had.
But there is proof, Dark Soul. There are affidavits. There are sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury from witnesses.
Hey, you were asked by Rogel Dorn. I probably butchered the hell out of that. Asking if you were an Austrian or a Chicagoite.
If I have to choose one or the other, it'd be Austrian.
Same. Yeah, same here. I've been reading a book by Hendrik Hagedorn. It's a model of Austrian economics. That dude figured out how to make the entirety of that model and explain it, and then use all the tools that the Keynesians, the post-Keynesians, neo-Keynesians, new Keynesians, and the Chicagoites and other branches of the neoclassical schools and trump them at their own game while conceding with Mises and Rothbard on praxeology, all at the same time on the damn model, and also Hayek being Hayekian and a big middle finger to the neoclassical. And I'm reading the book now. It's gorgeous. And this dude figured out how to do all this shit at 26.
Kevin Stimpian, I believe it was purposeful outrage marketing. Well, that sort of thing has happened. It's a bit 4D chess, but, you know. I believe he's talking about QD still. Yeah. Widespread. See, where does this word widespread come from? The only people I have seen use the word widespread are people like Marlowe who are trying to deny it. No one's talking about widespread voter fraud. There's just smaller amounts of it, but they're specifically in areas that can flip the election. It doesn't need to be widespread.
Yeah, it's not.
And also when you look at it, it's like different methods in different places. You know, some using the postal service, some using the polling places, some using, you know, the mail-in ballots, others using, you know, machine glitches or whatever. You know,
other places are using, like I said, the dead people voter things. You know, like 100 dumb. You know.
It's just people are going to try to cheat during it. There's always voter fraud in elections. Hate to break it to you, but there always is. It's just usually not enough to matter. But this race was so close, and I mean, just a few places were flipping the difference between several states that it wouldn't really take that much.
Yeah, and then you have. I was watching Jimmy Dore talking about the election. How did we get here? See, the funny thing is, he's a progressive. He's not a grifter like the posers who invented the ideology. And you've done so many gorgeous, well-informed, objectively unbiased nukings of the ideology in various areas of it. He actually has his heart on his sleeve and is a genuine person, but he actually believes the shit. Which is depressing because he's got a lot of potential, even in his older age, you know.
Hey, $4.99 super chat from Metalhead Martyr. Thank you so much. He writes, H.P. Lovecraft wrote a letter to a contemporary about how he questioned his beliefs, even referred to himself as acting like an ass. Thank you so much. Oh, there's Eccleston. I was wondering if he was going to come up. He's really small on the screen. I don't know why. I'm still working with this new setup. Everyone let me know what you think of this new setup. I'm still kind of working with it and tweaking it. And yes, I have heard of r/shit status say, yeah. That's a good one.
What I was saying was Tyson Urban just tagged you saying, look at the government. They're all guaranteed health care, which is paid by the taxpayers.
JC, the states having more votes than they had eligible voters, I think that's been debunked, but I think it's still the case that there's some either counties or precincts where that's still a question. So, but Sharpie Gate's a load of crap. Let's just let that die right here. Sharpies will not spoil a ballot.
I think the problem with that wasn't because they bleed through the paper and the computer doesn't read them correctly or something.
Well, no, because that wouldn't stop it. Because like if you take a ballot and you hold it up to the light or something, you'll see the ovals are actually are in different places.
Oh,
they're in different columns. Yeah.
Okay. Steve Thompson responded to it, but this guy Tyson Urban, he's got a. Hey, Tyson Urban
it's going back
look
fast.
at the government they're all guaranteed health care, which is paid for by the taxpayers. Why can't the American people have health care too, paid for by fellow Americans? Yeah, he's tagging you, asking you for that question.
Yeah.
It was a two-parter because of the character limits.
First of all, Dark Soul, Biden being president wouldn't mean that I'm wrong because I'm not saying he's not going to be the president. So let's just put that to rest right now. And in fact, as far as I'm concerned, you've just exposed yourself as an unthinking cultist. Second, I'll acknowledge that Biden is president when the election actually is finished and is certified. Nothing has happened then. The total number of votes Joe Biden has right now is 0. The total number of votes Donald Trump has right now is 0. And that will be the case until December 14th at least. So,
unless things go hairier and more shenanigans pop up from the investigations at the SCOTUS and the DOJ under Bill Barr being directed or shows up anymore, then it could be delayed even further. But also, Tyson Urban, he asked you that about healthcare. He also claimed healthcare is not a right. I'm sorry.
It's like he is a right. Yeah, is a right.
It is a right in the proper sense of the word right, as in a natural right, which means the government has no business interfering in the transactions between you and your doctor like they do all the time. But you see, they manipulate the word right to mean that you get to force someone else to pay for it, making that someone else your slave. Slavery is not a right.
Yeah, healthcare is not a negative right.
It is a negative right. It's not a positive right.
Yeah.
It's not a positive right. It is a negative right. It's not a positive right you can force someone else to give onto you.
Why are affidavits, Dark Soul, why are affidavits not evidence? They are evidence. They are sworn testimony under penalty of perjury. There is evidence for this. Deal with it.
Oh, sorry. Let me.
Okay. Echo through from Wes there.
And Tyson Urban is like, sorry, I want clean air and water and more regulations for business. Sorry, I want hardworking Americans to get a tax break, not billionaires.
Someone needs to watch my quickies.
May I respond to him real quick? I got a few
other
inputs. Mr. Tyson, let me give you a little something. I understand you want clean air and clean water, but do you not realize that the utility structure is 6/10 government and there's no innovation allowed because of the regulatory form of the structure of it? It's 6/10 government. I would easily say, if not more. You might as well say it's government run. And another thing, if you want clean air, let me give you a little something. Why aren't we exploring the air-assisted effervescent atomizing fuel injection technology for diesel engines, which actually would drastically scrub the air around us? Why aren't we giving Orbital UAC the go-to okay to put for the direct injection systems that are air-assisted that can make some gasoline engines all across the board and all cars so much cheaper to run? Far less maintenance and longer engine life. Why can't we do that? That's a private business that could bank on. Or better yet,
if you're really concerned about global warming, what about nuclear power? Because that could be our saving grace for global warming.
Then you got the fact that they have a second stage type nuclear reactor, where the second stage it recycles the first and second generation atomic wastes and turns it into many, many megawatts of thermal energy that could be used to spin a bunch of generators. Cut off of that as stage 2, making it much cheaper. And you can also harvest it off of if you can manage to properly extract the thorium and uranium salts out of fucking coal ash. Or better yet, why don't we, if you want to replace fracking, why don't you replace it with gasification of all the landfills and garbage? That would make plenty of synthetic natural gas with the advances for the last several decades in nickel-based catalysts. This is the thing about these issues. You're asking why don't we use the government to do it, but the government's not going to do diddle dick, son. Listen, you got companies that are sitting in the back wanting to do this, waiting to do it, waiting to get the okay and the damn funding, but no one's pushing them. No one's pushing for them.
All right,
Why
Dark
can't we
Soul.
have these guys do it.
Dark Soul. Get this through your head. We are not saying Joe Biden did not win the election.
Sorry, I had to explain these things to try to give them some input to gauge on them. You know,
Yeah.
Also,
I mean, in fact, everything is in Biden's favor right now, but there is a plausible pathway for Trump getting a second term. And to deny that is just, it's beyond unreasonable.
Yeah. Also, and I was going to say this earlier, but then Po Boy went on his rant about Tyson Urban. He says, I also want hardworking Tyson was like, I want hardworking Americans to get a tax break, not billionaires. And I'm like, Tyson, most billionaires are hardworking. They're, I forgot what the number was, but it was proven that most million and billionaires are self-made.
Tyson, that is absolutely not true. I have a bunch of quickies on this about clean air and clean water. They were getting clean long before government stepped in. Government just jumped in front of a parade and pretended to lead it like it always does. In fact, if anything, the improvements all but stopped once government started regulating them.
Oh, Flying Squid's like, most billionaires are self-made. Yeah, they struck gold. But does that give them the right on obscene amounts of wealth, and therefore power just because they had this right at the right moment? First of all, money doesn't give you power.
I think Flying Squid might be... Is that sarcasm?
Oh, I don't know.
You can never tell with text.
I can't tell if that's sarcasm or not.
If you're being
let
sarcastic,
us know, Squid, if that's
sarcastic. /s.
Yeah.
Add a /s. Then people know.
Just everything about that screams sarcasm to me. It's like it's too over the top.
Here's the thing, Tyson. Regulations aren't doing dick about the environment and the technological improvements that various companies are willing to jump in on, but they're not getting the proper funding, and they have too many barriers that are built off the same 116,000 to 117,000, if I remember, pages of federal level regulations, let alone the state and city regulations to where they're held in at bay at. Also, Flying Squid, the wealth is not the problem. There has to be a gateway to get that kind of power. If you make that kind of wealth providing goods and services to the people, and they don't do it by using back doors that could screw you over in the long run, they have every entitlement to that wealth. But if they use power pursuits and methods that hurt people overall as part of that, or use a central body like a government to levy off their loss, and it's just pure profit, which is a fallacy. It's a half-assing of profit, not a full, because profit and loss, you have to weigh against loss and, actually be responsible.
Also, Tyson,
I
want to nominate Tyson for Idiot Extraordinaire because he just told you, Shane, that Sam Cedar would crush you in a debate.
Yeah, see any of my videos on Cedar. The only reason he would is because the only reason he ever wins is because he talks over them, mutes their mic, and then cuts them off. And then hangs up on them.
I've seen off there. Well, how do you explain this? Okay, well, that could be solved by, I'm going to cut you off, but what would happen if this happens? Well, I'm just going to, okay, I got to cut you off,
Okay, Flying Squid and Tyson Urban.
Okay, Flying Squid's not sarcastic. He's serious.
Oh.
They're both serious. I know this. They're both serious. They don't have /s's after hearing. All right, both of you. I got some propositions. I got 7 companies I could probably link you. I'd have to gather the link references. one company I could get you links to 2 of the sites already for them. I actually gave a public endorsement to that company. It's called BioRoot Energy. That's the first one. They're dedicated to steam reforming CO2 from coal power plants, gasifying garbage, landfill, petroleum coke, and making a high-performance, higher mixed alcohol fuel that has is more benefits than putting ethanol in gasoline and cleaning the air up and reversing a lot of pollution problem. If you want the links, they want to profit off of cleaning up our fucking planet. You want proof? There's your first piece of proof. If you want that references, I'll gladly.
Tyson, have you seen any of my videos? First of all, I've done Kyle Kulinski. Second of all, everyone who knows my videos on my podcast knows how much I hate Donald Trump. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2020. I don't like Donald Trump. Deal with it. And you wonder why we call you cultists. Because this is your thinking. You think anyone that doesn't fit in your nice, neat little box must be this big, right-wing, deplorable, Trump supporter, racist, white supremacist, whatever. It's crazy.
Also, I ask you this, Tyson. You say companies don't care about the environment. All they care about is money. I'm like, okay, let's say they're these evil, conniving, monopolistic people that only care about money. They don't care about anything else. How is causing global warming and killing everyone with pollution going to make them more money? How?
Bam.
Yeah.
If you kill off your customer base, you fucking die out. You don't have a customer base.
How you doing, bovine spongiform flu?
And squid is like cheaper production is usually very pollution. No, it's not.
No,
it's not. In fact,
that's not in any way true.
In fact, cheaper production is often less wasteful.
Guess how I can tell that neither Tyson Urban nor Flying Squid has ever run a business before in their life?
I'm sorry for shilling this company, but I feel like I should just to prove a fucking point.
Well, how can you prove that, Shane?
How can I prove what? I'm trying to read the chat.
How can you tell they never run a business?
Oh, just because of what they're saying about it. It's complete ignorance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Flying Squid says he'll PayPal you $100. What's the catch?
The Dark Soul says 1,000.
Professor Jacobson Pimp, yes, unless you use a chili or pepper-based sauce instead of a tomato sauce. That's why pineapple pizza can be such a love or a hate or sin.
And again, I'm not saying that Biden's gonna lose. The safe money is probably on Biden right now because Trump, if he wants to get this election overturned, he's got a long, difficult road ahead of him. But it's far from impossible. There are questions, and it just kind of all depends on what comes out. Thank you so much, Bovine Spongiform, for $5. He says, ANCAP for life.
Dark Soul. I'm sorry, but you're either in denial or you've got a really, really thick skull.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing I was going to link is the orbital thing. It's a web page.
I didn't what, Tyson? I didn't what? I didn't what?
Here's the article of Orbital Flex DI air-assisted fuel injection, which allows a massive increase of EGR. And here's another company. It's called Coates. The Coates rotary valve. Coates. A second. And they're active in business. They have patents on them, which again I don't really believe in. I do believe in intellectual protection, not through patent and copy fringe. Stefan Kinsella, I think, pretty much nuked that out the water. There's that company. And they sell natural gas engines and low pollution, super efficient engines. And some of these engines can go up to 300 kilowatt hours of continuous power. Massive generators, and there you go. Some of these can be dual fueled if you wanted them to. I'm sure you can get their technology to modify existing engines, but you got to get a licensing and such. But they're there. They have an international and a Chinese branch, of course. Check them out, guys, if you want. I'm giving these guys evidence of companies to. I'm not trying to shill whore, but these are companies that have a very innovative technologies that can actually clean the environment and improve engine life and engine performance, cut emissions, and make it less fuel costs less on companies if they're allowed to get the okay and get allowed to expand.
Well, and getting back to the election thing, even if you don't support Trump, which I don't, again, don't you want a proper count of the vote? Don't you want our elections to have integrity? Do you want it to be this easy to go in and put in a bunch of fraudulent votes? Why, even if you're for Biden, why wouldn't you want to have this looked at? I mean, it might be your candidate that loses next because the Republicans cheated better.
Tyson, that doesn't prove anything. He says business activity has an impact on the natural environment, such as timber, oils, metals used to manufacture goods. That's how it ruins the environment. Well, first of all, the fact that we use paper and other wood products, that's the reason why we have more trees, because how do you make more money, by converting wood pulp into paper? You need more wood. Where do you get wood from? Trees. So you plant more trees.
Stupid argument.
So
anyway,
you're demanding the more trees be planted. Yeah.
Yeah. And as for metals, look, a lot of metals are easily recyclable, like tin, and as for oil, again, if you hate oil so much, then why wouldn't you let people actually, come up with new fuel sources, like nuclear power?
And SKM in the chat pointing out that yes, Biden is a warmonger and a racist. And so is Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris has to be like the worst candidate for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay, Dark Soul, we are not saying that Biden did not win the election. We are just saying it's not over. He's apologizing. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
All right,
Still,
yeah.
Get it?
John Tyson. Tyson said, "Who cares about producing anything? We need to fix income inequality." What kind of violent shit are you saying?
Someone clearly hasn't heard of Say's Law.
Yeah.
Of course not. They have to deny it because they come from they're fucking anti-thunks. Originate from Bronze Age monarch dick suckers and bootlickers. Of course they're gonna
So supporting what Pierre Collins just put in the chat, you actually didn't even have upward mobility before capitalism. That's the only reason upward mobility even exists.
Sorry, Tyson and the others, but contrary to what you love to say, feudalism is much more closer to what you want than what we like, because in feudalism, you don't own any property. You don't own any money. Everything belongs to the kingdom.
But Professor Jacobson Pimp is here with the really big, hard-hitting issue that's more important than any of them: Papa John's or Pizza Hut?
Papa John's.
In general, I go with Papa John's, but Pizza Hut does have this pasta Alfredo. Yeah. That's really good, and Papa John's doesn't have anything like that.
JC Armitage, Kamala Harris was not a cop. She was a prosecutor, though.
Yes, Biden Harris, the put black people in jail again ticket.
Yeah.
That's literally
That's what I want to ask her. That's what I want to ask.
Tyson, absolutely nothing right now is stopping you from forming a workers' co-op.
Yes, Dylan Arudo. Thank you.
Thank you. $5. Read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. Sowell's a good one. And J.C. Armitage.
Tyson.
Kamala Harris.
I went to multiple companies that care about the earth and could help it if given the go-to everywhere, but they ain't, because corporate regulations between certain countries forbid it, and including the OEM system, because a lot of it's got some crock of shit elements to it that are riddled.
All right, JC Armitage, there's Dylan Sollard. JC, before I have to scroll up from Kamala Harris, sorry, I didn't mean to be racist there, was a cop and prosecutor who threw numerous innocent people who were also disproportionately black men in prison for the pre-crime of smoking a plant. Also, she could have the workforce. She wouldn't let them go when the courts told her to because she said that she needed the prison workforce.
Yeah. Though I will stay corrected, she wasn't a cop. She was a prosecutor. But basically, prosecutors are just the politicians who control the cops. Basically, for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Tyson, inequality and imperialism was the norm before capitalism. I don't know where you're getting this stuff.
Imperialism is more a result of mercantilism than anything else, and mercantilism isn't capitalism.
Yeah.
Capitalism came about because they were trying to get rid of mercantilism.
It's like you want to claim that American capitalism is imperialistic. No, mercantilism is imperialistic, and mercantilism is the exact thing that the Americans fought a war of secession over.
Yeah.
Basically. So, false, bitch. This is...
Yeah, JC, it took me a while to realize they weren't sarcastic, but Wes told them to put the /S if they were being sarcastic, and they're not, but...
Yeah. I will say, I will give them kudos
for
they
might be trolling. They might actually be libertarians who are trying to discredit statists by making them seem ridiculous and over the top.
Yeah, but still,
they don't really need to do that. They do that all on their own.
No.
I mean, but that's don't get hopes up.
I will say this though, if they are seriously and they're not trolls, at least I'll give them kudos for coming in. A lot of people out there, they talk all about that and like, okay, well, let's have a public debate about that. And they're like, no, why? Because I know what's gonna happen. You're just gonna say this, and then I gotta provide evidence, and then, and then I gotta provide evidence, and but you're gonna ignore it and all that. And I'm like, so you don't want to debate?
Professor Jacobson Pimp, I gotta go with Tobey Maguire for the best Spider-Man there.
People like to hate on the original Spider-Man movies, but I thought they were okay.
It's pretty too, really.
And it's pretty funny because some people are complaining, saying that they were too cheesy. It's like, have you read the original Spider-Man comics? I mean, I haven't, but I've seen plenty of pamphlets from it, and I watch comic book tropes.
I got problems with the third one, but the first two were good.
Yeah.
Jed, you're gonna cringe at this. Tyson said, "Why do you continue to embrace white nationalism? Aren't you supposed to be a libertarian?"
Oh God!
Wow.
No one's embracing white nationalism.
Okay,
you see, this is what I'm saying. It's just too over the top. They're just edgelords, I think.
Yeah. Why do you support white nationalism? Where did I ever say I supported white nationalism? Yeah.
I got fucked up memes, but no, I don't actually believe them. That's why I shitpost.
Listen, Tyson. Listen, Tyson, if you're a serious statist, you're free to stay, but if you're not, then just shut up, because we're only interested in debating status if they're legit. If they're not, then
we don't want to respond to a bunch of straw man arguments. We want to respond to what they're really saying.
Yeah, because then we'd have a better conversation talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the problem with Spider-Man 3 was that they were just trying to put too much into one.
Too many enemies.
Yeah.
There was no reason to have Sandman in the movie, considering that he didn't even defeat Sandman. Sandman just kind of left.
Yeah. That's another thing, too, that I've heard people say is, like, the villains don't really connect. Like, Sandman has nothing to do with Venom, and same thing, with Oz.
I have a video demonstrating completely and unambiguously that not only is Venezuela absolutely socialist, Flying Squid, but that you socialists were happy to claim it as one of your own before 2013 when things started going south. Then, what do you always do? Just like you did with Cuba, just like you did with the USSR. Turns out things aren't so great. Then you go, well, not real socialism. Shut up.
Yeah. Venezuela isn't socialist. They put sugar on their porch, and everyone knows real socialists don't do that. That's my response whenever every time people say that. Like when I bring up, all the Socialist Party of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, they're like, well, that wasn't real socialism. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because Hitler put sugar on his porch, and everyone knows real socialists don't do that.
Yeah. Samuel Schott scrolled up off the top, but he wants to know what all the controversy is about, because there's a lot of fishy things about this election and people want to look into it. A lot of people don't know it, but it was actually the Pennsylvania Democratic Party that took out the lawsuit in Pennsylvania. The Trump campaign joined in, but it was initially the Democrats that took it out.
I'm going to screw with Tyson here.
Dark Soul saying, I'm not attacking you here, sir. I have an open mind, but like I say again, I have faith in the United States justice system. If this was not a fair election, I believe it will all come out. What's your response to that?
I mean, there's a process to go through for that, and the Trump campaign is going through the legal constitutional process that's been set up for this.
Socialism,
just in case there was this eventuality.
Socialism is just where the workers control the means of production. Define workers. What is that group? What does that group look like? Define your terms, sir.
Yeah.
Why is everyone a worker except the owner, given that the owner probably puts as much work, if not more, into business than anyone?
Everyone's a worker except for the boss and the middle manager, because we don't like them. So go fucking destroy them. The police and fire department are socialism. Also, social programs you are using are technically socialism. Oh yeah, because the police are totally
no. See, here's the thing. Hold on. Here's the thing. You got socialists that say that, oh no, that's all socialism is, and then once you've totally trashed them, they go back, oh, you just think socialism is when government does stuff. Well, gee, where would we have gotten that idea?
Yeah, look, people, you cannot implement socialism without a government. It's just think it through. How are you going to enforce all of these collectivist policies? How are you going to do that in a quote unquote voluntary society? It ain't going to work.
Fire department and police are socialists. Like, yes. That's why they're terrible. Thanks for coming to my TED talk.
That's why the police are beating up and shooting people for possessing a plant, and why in many countries, especially Australia, they're letting their countries burn to the ground.
Professor Jackson Pimp, I don't have Hulu at the moment, so I can't watch the new Animaniacs season, but I'm sure I'll see it at some point. They got the original voice actors back, which is a good sign.
Yeah. They have a funny trailer too, where they're like rebooting something is a bad sign of society. It's really bad and all that. Then it's like, here's your paycheck. Then they're like, oh yay, we're back.
I just hope the animation doesn't suck like the original in like the third and fourth season. The animation really took a downhill turn.
It's one cartoon I wish we could find, because that could really be worth doing a Lord Killing episode. Is Hysteria, because
they got a lot of stuff wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially when you said you watched their Civil War episode, and you were just like, man, they got it all wrong, I mean, like, for instance, they said that the Underground Railroad stopped once they got past the Mason-Dixon line, completely ignoring the Fugitive Slave Act was still in act. So what it really went to was Canada or Mexico, depending on how close it was.
Oh my God, Flying Squid. That was literally a fucking public socialistic fire department.
It's the South Fulton or North Fulton or whatever it was. We debunked that long ago. That was a government. That was a city fire department who was prohibited from doing it by city ordinance.
Yeah, even when the guy said, "I have the money to pay for it," I'll pay for it right now, and you can put it out, and they were like, nope, we can't do it. It's against the law. You have to pay it right from the beginning, or else we are legally not allowed to do that. Meanwhile, his neighbors got free, and the guy lost everything. How would it?
No. First off, you don't need a monopoly of power to run a utility system.
No, that's just dumb.
You could actually, if you're near water, first off, do you know how easy generators are to get a hold of if you just save enough money? Especially if you get the Delta wire, like cold generator types that are have really clean electrical output.
Go to your favorite search engine and type in Murray Rothbard, The Myth of Natural Monopolies.
Yeah, Myth of Natural Monopoly. Great fucking refutation. Beautiful one.
Yeah, and also Flying Squid, water and electricity are usually either run by the government or are heavily subsidized and regulated by it.
I don't get my water from the government.
I've said it.
There's no government water where I am. There's no government water or sewer where I am. I manage just fine.
And in many cases, they actually get in the way in trying to create independent. Like, here's the thing I tell people all the time when they're like, when they talk about how much they hate Comcast and they blame capitalism for Comcast. I'm like, oh, so capitalism is the problem for Comcast? Well, let me ask you this: get some IT guys together and try to make your own cable company or whatnot. You know what's going to happen within a month or so? The FCC is going to be on your back saying, yeah, you don't have the licenses to do that, so we're shutting you down.
Hey, we've got a good question here, actually, from Gary Johnson's burner. Let me stop the chat a second. It says, what happens in an ANCAP society if someone refuses to settle the dispute with you in a private court? Well, good luck to them when they need something settled in that court. They're probably not going to get a lot of sympathy there.
Yeah, that's the natural law enforcement is, if you're a crook and a con artist, even if, let's say, you get away with it, if people know what you did was wrong, but they got away with it, nobody's going to do business with them. Like, let's ask you this. If we were to release all the guys, who are behind the Enron company out, and they say all the charges are dropped, you're free to do whatever you want, do you think people are going to want to do business with them? Same thing. Actually, going back to Enron, it's pretty funny because actually one of the accounting companies that was playing along with the Enron scan, they actually, fell apart, but it wasn't because of government. It was because they lost their reputation, and all the major companies that did business with them said, yeah, if you guys are going to cover fraud for Enron, we don't want to do business with you.
I'm not sure what either of those diets are, Professor Jacobson, but in general, the wider variety of stuff you eat, the better the diet is.
Yeah. Jacobson Pimp, I hate to say it, but what we call the Mediterranean diet in the USA is a made-up concept that was started in the 70s and 80s. It's a loose parody of certain Greek and Southern Italian cuisines, but a little bit Americanized.
That's what's funny about it. It's like, it's like all these dishes are from Greece and Italy, and I'm like, yeah, well, what about Spain? Well, what about Spain, France, Libya, Morocco, and Egypt? They bordered the Mediterranean.
Profits is not an argument, Squid. Profits are a product of people. And feedback and signals between people. So nice.
Profits is how people improve their lives. I did Jimmy Dore, didn't I?
I don't know who that is.
Didn't I do him? I think I did him once.
Income minus expenses. A household.
Stephen Thompson has the best one. Jimmy Dore isn't here. Step up. Yeah, that's another thing too. That's another thing too. You should probably bring up. You should definitely, if you're gonna bring up
That's hilarious.
If you're going to bring up a person, either give us a quote or tell us what to read about them. Don't just say they destroy in a debate. Say, well, what did they say? Well, I can't think of it at the top of my head. Okay, well, then give me, the essay or the book it came from. I don't have that either. Then why'd you bring them up?
I think Marius Gavrilo is trying to get us back on topic here, which was supposed to be the presidential election, but
I think
anyway, this is how things go.
There was evidence that it was rigged, but now the affidavits are cementing it. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah. I think it's still not as. I mean, the other side gets to present their case in court, and they'll go over it. But I don't have any more information than you guys do. I'm just not making any assumptions because
I will say.
I mean, it helps. It helps not having a horse in the race because JoJo's not gonna take it. But
I know. I know that we can't prove that it's rigged. But here's the thing: even if it's been proven that it wasn't rigged, still with all the stuff that was going on, it still proves how unconfident the government is. And
I mean, even like I said, even if you are on Biden's side, don't you want transparency? Don't you want to have confidence in our electoral system? I mean, the big problem that's going to come from this is that, especially with the news media now normalizing the idea of Biden being the president, no matter which way this turns out, half of America is going to think the presidential election was stolen.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't anti-Semitic to do it in South Africa, it's not anti-Semitic to do it in Israel. What?
I have no idea what he's talking about. And I never said anything about anti-Semitism, so this is...
Yeah, he's either... Again, Tyson, unless you're serious, just shut up. Because if you're just being a troll with all these strawmans, just shut up. Because
because you're not helping anything.
Yeah, you're just. I mean, that's another thing I hate is when a lot of those leftists say, "Ha, I got you to get mad. That means I'm winning because you're getting mad." No, we're getting mad because you're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and no matter how many times we explain it, you keep ignoring it or letting it go past your head. It's like that Groucho Marx song, "I'm against it,"
Stopping the rise of fascism and authoritarian in this country was too important. I had to bite the bullet and vote for Biden. You mean the guy who is literally advocating fascism right now?
Yeah, that's kind of contradictory, Marius. If you were to fight fascism, you would at least vote Jorgensen or Trump, because both of them are against it. I'm not a Trump supporter either. I'm not a fan. But I will say this, folks. Name me one fascistic thing Trump has ever done. He's actually been staunchly anti-war. I
wouldn't go that far, but he's done better than...
He's been more anti-war. Yeah. Okay, not staunchly, but he's been more anti-war lenient than most other candidates have.
Basically, any president since Carter.
Yeah, since Carter for decades. He was anti. He sued. What was the club? Mar-a-Lago, whatever was it? For not including blacks and Jews. He also went down there. He was one of the first celebrities to go down to the New Orleans and stuff during when Hurricanes Katrina and Rita went through and wrecked the place. He also, I mean, I'd love to see some evidence of one fascistic, racist thing he did. And by the way, one of the first woman, I think in American history to actually build a skyscraper was, I think it was a Hispanic woman that he hired. So,
all right, better question. Better question from Andy Davis. Do you think government funding of capital expenditures, production machinery, and infrastructure could increase economic growth? Government funding doesn't increase economic growth. It's taking money from one person and using it less efficiently than they would have if they'd been free to spend or save it on their own.
Also, Flying Squid, please don't say that the lockdowns are fascistic. Well, if you're worried about that, then you shouldn't vote for Biden because he wants to bring a lot of those lockdowns back.
Well, Biden specifically said he wanted to use the act, and I forget the name of it, but it was the one that was used in the Korean War to take over businesses and force them to start making weapons. Yeah, that's literally fascism. That's what fascism literally does.
Yeah. Another one? Here's another one. This sounds, I don't know, it sounds pretty fascistic to me, but when you say, if you say that if a business cannot afford to pay this much or that to employees, they don't deserve to exist. That's pretty fascist as well.
Tyson, how can you say that when these entitlement spendings outnumber all other government spending combined, including defense?
Yeah. Welfare, entitlement, Social Security, that's the biggest goddamn spending problems we got. And it's terrible. Like, if you take the 20-something trillion dollars of the national debt out, the U.S. government still has 120-something entitlements that they'll never be able to pay?
Yeah, SKM, he said he'll do a national lockdown, and he also said that he'd have the government take over businesses to make them produce masks and other things that we need to fight it.
Oh, and by the way, Flying Squid says that Trump is a fascist because he said stop the count. And I just said, listen. Saying and doing are two different things. Yes, there is no denying Trump has said some really stupid, ridiculous stuff. But the reason why I don't criticize him for that is because he almost never acts on it.
Well, and what he was saying was stop the count temporarily so we can make sure everything's being counted properly.
Yeah. He is sending his goons, which can be compared to South Africa, to try to intimidate pollsters. Where? Where has that happened? People are saying, oh, there were Trump supporters intimidating us. I've never heard anyone say that. There was no one intimidating us at the place I went to. I talked to a lot of people asking was there anyone, showing up, saying you better vote for Trump, and they all said no. I haven't seen it.
C. Kayla says, aren't there better things to do with our time? I'll discuss after the electoral college vote is in. There's not anything these internet arguments can do. Yes, there is, because we need to point this out as much as possible, because the media is trying to normalize the idea of a Trump presidency in people's minds. I mean, ask any salesman. That's how you con someone into buying something they wouldn't ordinarily buy.
By the way, Shane, Tyson just compared you to Shapiro.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I mean...
Even though I've debunked Shapiro on my channel.
Yeah. I mean, I like Shapiro on a lot of this stuff. Like, I like when he talks about economics and debunking, SJW propaganda. But one thing I do disagree with him, because he kind of has said this, is that he blames the rise on socialism on our lack of religious belief. And that just what makes me facepalm when I hear people like that. They're like, the rise of socialism is occurring because we lost our faith in God. No, it's because men in high castles are convincing them that we're powerless, defenseless little snowflakes that can't think for ourselves, and we believe them.
Yeah, Dark Soul, we're a mixed economy.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And
SKM, if you support Biden, you can rest well knowing you're supporting a warmonger and a hypocrite. Absolutely right. But this was the Daniel Garza. This was the first presidency in 36 years that made it a full 4 years with no new conflicts. Obama-Biden increased us from 2 to 7.
Most people are happy that Trump is gone, not on Biden himself. Which is miles better than Trump. Yeah, Listen, Flying Squid, that's what everyone says about the new president. Trump was better than Obama. Obama was better than Bush. Bush was better than Clinton. Clinton was better than George Bush Sr. They've always said that. And that's another thing, too, that I really want to tell people. It's like, listen, if and when Biden does win and take office, do not expect, America to be like pre-Trump, because it's not. It's not going to be. It just isn't. I mean, seriously, going back, look at Obama for a perfect example. Look what he promised when he took office. He promised he was going to get us out of Iraq and all that. He was going to give us, he was going to give us all this stuff. He was going to make everything prosperous. And guess what? He increased the wars and America's economy didn't get any better.
Well, Tyson, Kyle Kulinski says a lot of crap, much of which I've debunked on my channel. So
yeah.
Kyle Kulinski says, well, good for him. So that doesn't mean anything.
Says we need to have a mixture of socialism and capitalism. Yeah, and 1,000 years ago, people would have said, "What? You want to start a nation where people make decisions for themselves and there's no king or lord or church? You can't do that. That's impossible." Yeah, fine.
Didn't he write the crime bill? Or am I thinking of an earlier one? He wrote one of those big crime bills that was like, I think it had like mandatory minimum sentences for crack cocaine and other things like that. Which, funny how, at least at the time, that was mostly associated with black people. Even though powdered cocaine isn't really any better, but there weren't any increased penalties for that because rich white people do that.
Yeah, Yeah, fine. Dismantle all of capitalism. Oh yeah, because that totally worked when Lenin took over Russia. That totally worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, our debt. I will say this. There's a lot to say about Andrew Jackson as the president, and there's a lot of bad stuff to say. But there was one good thing that he did that I do wish some presidents just had the balls to do. He literally stopped Congress from passing any more finance bills until we paid off our debts. He literally said, not literally, but figuratively, he said, I am not going to pass. I'm going to veto any spending bill you give me until we pay off our previous debt. And I wish more.
Now, who are you talking about?
Andrew Jackson.
Yeah. But wasn't it Jackson's election that was, if anything, a lot worse than this one?
Yeah.
I think it was the other guys, though, not Jackson himself. But
yeah.
Yeah, 1828, I believe it was.
I mean, that's one thing I did like about Adam Conover is when he actually came to Trump's defense by, because they're all like, Trump is clearly unfit for presidency because he's saying all these crazy stuff. And Adam Conover pointed out that actually politicians have been talking like that for years. I mean, going back to Jackson, before becoming president, that guy was known. He was known for getting into duels if people angered him. He actually before becoming president, he killed 2 people personally in a duel.
I don't care for churros.
Are right libertarians pro-life or pro-choice? You see, fine, good. Here's the problem with this. A lot of people think if you're pro this, that means you must be against that, because here's generally what I've seen from most libertarians. From a practical standpoint, we're pro-life, but we also recognize that banning abortion doesn't fix anything, so we still allow it,
We might try to talk you out of getting an abortion, but
Yeah.
we won't use force to stop you.
Yeah, I tell this to people all the time. I say, hey, I view abortion the same way I view taking drugs. I'm against taking it personally, and I'm going to do everything in my ability to try to convince you not to do it. But if you go through with it, well, unfortunately, that's not in my decision. That's your choice. So
I can never remember if it was Jackson or Tyler who did the Trail of Tears. Shot says it was Jackson.
Yeah. And to be honest, I've always hated the whole pro-life, pro-choice thing. I like how Penn and Teller pointed that out. It's like, you should always be pro-life and pro-choice. It doesn't matter. It should be whether you're pro or against abortion.
Yep.
Yeah. Everyone should be pro-life and pro-choice because
pro-choice isn't even pro-abortion. It's just, again, we're not going to use force to stop you from having an abortion.
Yeah. At least stop you from doing an early abortion, because one could make the argument that late-stage abortion should not be performed unless there's a legit medical reason to do so.
But what are you going to do to stop it? Yeah. Uh-oh, looks like they're burning me now. It turns out not liking churros was my undoing. Who would have thought after all this time?
Yeah, churros. Shane, I was watching some of your older Quickie videos, and I was watching the one on root beer and all that, and I don't know if you read the comment I posted, but it's pretty funny about how they banned, sassafras because, they found it can cause liver cancer in mice. And I'm like, yeah, and you know what else causes liver cancer? Alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But alcohol is the product, not an additive. So That's the difference. It's crazy.
All these exemptions for alcohol just makes me come to the belief that humanity as a whole is a functioning alcoholic.
Well, there's an interesting hypothesis that Paul Stamets, the medicinal mycologist, permaculture advocate, talked about, called the magic mushroom evolution hypothesis. That
You're fading out and cutting out.
Sorry, I'm just sitting back down, getting the cat out of my chair. Basically, the magic mushroom hypothesis, where early species of Homo, just in early Homo sapiens might have encountered psychedelic stuff, like mainly like medicinal mushrooms, and that caused some changes to happen in their heads, and it could have caused could have helped them along evolutionarily wise, because there's all kind of crazy things that psychedelics can do on a neurological basis. In small doses, so much for the better,
Yeah, Flying Squid. The foster system and adoption system is really bad because of all the government intervention in there. I mean, it's just it's crazy. We definitely need to improve that.
There's actually, Wes, there's actually a theory. I've heard some people think that they actually believe that drugs might be the origin for all religions because they believe that maybe at some point, the chief of a village, it took some sort of plant or drugs and it made them see all these visions and hallucinated. And because we didn't know anything about psychology back then, he assumed, some divine being must have been talking to me.
Yeah, time to go back, and they do a perfect job of destroying the free market, but convincing everyone it's still a free market. How many decades have they been telling us after all their interventions that it's a free market in healthcare? How?
Oh, yeah.
Or banking? How?
Oh, yeah. Your neocons are your biggest corporate whores out there.
Yeah. I mean, hell, just look. Just look at the UK. They are full blown national. National socialized medicine, and even though every single doctor is telling them it's failing, the politicians are still like, no, it can't be. It must be something,
Well, it's like that debate between who's running against Boris Johnson. I think it was Nigel Farage. And that debate they had, there was a doctor in the audience who said, what, aside from just throwing money at it, will you do to fix the NHS? And they just answered with a bunch of platitudes about the NHS and then promised to spend more money.
Nazis actually privatized industries during their interwar years.
No, they didn't. Fucking false.
No, they didn't.
It's not
nationalized and called privatization.
That is not privatization.
Yeah.
Private property has to be left alone by the government.
Let me ask you:
if the government is able to interfere and control it, it's not private. Bottom line.
I think Jacobson's gone full Antifa on us here in the chat. The bombs in the fire.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Fender.
I was about to say, listen. The biggest proof I like to tell people all the time to prove that the Nazis were not pro-capitalism is look what they did to Hugo Juncker. He was one of the biggest, aircraft designers. In fact, he was actually a very revolutionary man in the field of airplane construction, and he led a very successful company. And you know what the Nazis did to him? They removed him from his own company simply because he didn't want to make bombers for them.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If your property that's yours and your business is under the threat of being controlled by, basic social principle here, seize the means of production, but more bluntly about it, and you more direct, because that's what Hitler, all the fascists and the Nazis did. They did the same thing. They called it private.
Well, tactical. They put it into the hands of their fellow Nazis, so they were private on paper, but they were controlled by the Nazis core group. Yeah.
So they weren't really private. It was to call them private would be a lie, because if your property or your business is under the threat of being seized, by a collective, it's not private. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no real. It's not. If it's either private or it's not.
And also, I'm just gonna say this firsthand. People telling the government that saying that this particular structure no longer is going to be run by the government, but you still give it to someone who's a BFF of the government. That is not privatization.
The ironic thing, JC, is when it comes to stuff like making masks, they never had to, take over anything to make that happen. All they had to do was get the FDA to remove the limitations on production. I mean, why are those even there?
Yeah.
That doesn't make us safer. oh, you can only sterilize so many masks a day, you can only make so many pills of this drug a year. What does that have to do with keeping us safe?
Yeah, we've brought this up plenty of times. One of the reasons why we don't have broad spectrum antivirals and all this stuff is because of the FDA. That's what I want to ask, some of those doctors that are for private healthcare. To prove our point, try to discover some type of medicine. Do all your research. Try to discover some new type of medicine. Now try to get it through the FDA.
Bingo.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
And the big problem, I keep talking about this because it's so important, we are going to need new novel antibiotics. But the problem is the FDA has basically made that impossible. Before the FDA, this was like in a 40-year period, there were dozens of novel new antibiotics. Since the expanded FDA requirements in the 60s for efficacy testing, the amendments, there's only been like 2 in that whole time since then, the 50-plus years.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why I laugh at people that say we need the government to fund science because we're so behind. It's like, no, we are discovering new things all the time. We are discovering new medicines. We're discovering new chemicals. But the reason why we can't implement them into our everyday life is because the government's like, well, we gotta make sure.
But their idea of making sure is such a shoddy, bullshit, nonsense, flim-flam, fuckery-ridden process. It's terrible. It could fucking... those who do that and have killed so many doing this, go eat shit. Eat shit and fucking croak.
JC, Sweden being the most reasonable about the virus, who would have thought, yeah, except for the nursing home thing. They were dumb about that, and the virus went through their nursing homes.
Also, Samuel shocked about how similar socialism and fascism were. Well, here's another thing that we got to bring up. Benito Mussolini, who founded the modern-day fascist movement, he was a socialist throughout most of his life. The only reason...
Yep, he said that like fascism was something like the most perfect implementation of socialism or something like that.
Yeah, and before anyone says, yes, Mussolini left the Socialist Party, and yes, he had a fallout with them, but it wasn't because he disagreed with socialism, it's because he wanted Italy to get involved in the First World War, because he thought World War I was the ultimate, revolution for the Italian workers, and the socialists were like, well, no, we're anti-war because it's a bourgeois war, even though it wasn't, but still, Here's another fun fact that...
He never stopped being a commie. He just claimed to have a traditionalist and a nationalist.
He was never a he was never a communist. He was just a socialist. He didn't like.
He was never a socialist, but he's never stopped being a socialist. He just claimed to develop a nationalist and a traditionalist streak. That's literally it.
Yeah, I have to agree with JC. Jacob, it was funny the first couple times pretending to go all Antifa, because Shane doesn't like churros, but now it's just getting annoying.
Yeah.
It's like that SpongeBob episode where he makes a couple of people laugh because he ripped his pants, and now he's ripping it over and over again, and people are like, yeah, we get it, SpongeBob, you ripped your pants.
Oh, yeah, that does concern me too, Dark Soul. I appreciate your input there. I that does concern me too, sir. Exactly, SKM 1091. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone know what Stephen Thompson is talking about? Reiner Fuel Mike talking to the ICC? I'm not sure what any of that's
really
about.
Sure, right off the bat. Yeah,
if Dark Soul, if you had come in here not making 1,000 different assumptions, you would have been treated a lot better.
Yeah,
and
you're fine. If you're not making a bunch of stupidity spurgeries or false assumptions or parroting nonsense. It's been debunked bajillions of times. You're fine.
That's the problem. Everything being brought up, especially by that other guy, I can't think of his name right off the bat, but it's all stuff we've talked about ad nauseum. Just look at my channel, Why is this so much to ask to just spend, 10 minutes looking to see if we've already covered something,
You don't even have to spend 10 minutes. You could just type up Like, you could just type up Quickie. Just look up the Quickie playlist. It cut your time down by that, whatever. Or make yourself your own personal playlist for Quickies. Or I mean, there's already...
Yeah.
Just
If
type
you
up
were
Quickies.
Tyson, that was the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
If you were held at gunpoint, forced to choose between Biden and Trump, who would you vote for? I tell the guy, just freaking shoot me.
Yeah, I'd pick the bullet. I picked the bullet.
Just kill me.
I tell him to shoot me, and I just hope my brains paint his face, make him vomit.
It kind of reminds me of this one skit where it's like a madman breaks into your house and hands you a gun and your two children and says you're only allowed to keep one of them. Which child do you shoot? And everyone's like, that's horrible. That's a horrible thing to think of. And I'm like, people, he gave you the gun. You shoot the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of that thing. The whole point is to make you realize he gave you the gun and said you got to shoot one of your children. Who are you going to shoot? You shoot the guy.
You shoot him, yeah.
Yeah, you shoot him. I've actually heard some companies actually implement questions like that when they're looking for new resume to see if you can think outside the box. You know, like I've heard like Microsoft used to do the classic I was going to St. Ives riddle to test, to see how good you were at spotting details. You've heard that one, right, Shane? The St. Ives riddle?
Not off the top of my head.
It goes like this. I was going to St. Ives, then I met a man with 7 wives. Each wife had 7 sacks. Each sack had 7 cats. Each cat had 7 kittens. How many were going to St. Ives?
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
The answer is 1 because...
because I was going to St. Ives.
Yeah, because you're going there. The man and his wives weren't going there.
Let's see. Okay, so Stephen Thompson is giving us a lot of stuff here.
You know what's interesting? Okay, let me read this real quick. At Nash Bank, formerly one of the world's largest, most respected banks, today one of the most toxic criminal organizations in the world.
Especially back when it was the Bundesbank, because they put the Deutschmark on sound money, and that really...
Project Veritas is a good way to look for dirt on people that are trying to pull really shady biases and stuff in the system.
I just wish they had, better things like understanding of like what's hearsay and what's direct and stuff like that. If they just had a little better understanding of the standards of evidence, I think they could be really good.
Yeah, Shane, you actually said that hearsay is a legit political defense like that, just like jury nullification. Courts are slowly trying to get rid of now. Because, I've seen enough Legal Eagle episodes to show that contrary to popular belief, if you show up in court, and submit into evidence and say, we want to submit into, and they're like, we want to submit evidence to prove that this defendant is guilty because we found this recording of him. Well, guess what? You know what most good lawyers are going to say? That's hearsay. How do you know? Yeah. Because to be fair, it is true. Because
the guy could have been, reading out some obscure play or something like that.
Yeah, a perfectly good example that people use is like, let's say, a woman is found dead and the husband of the woman is the primary suspect. And people say, well, he had to have done it because I heard, because there's a recording of him in a bar saying, sometimes I just want to kill my wife. Now, the reason why we have hearsay is because the context could actually be he's just drinking along and he and his buddy are talking about how annoying their wives can be sometimes. And he's just saying in a sly mark, oh, yeah, sometimes my wife gets so crazy, I just want to run her over,
Yeah, Samuel, this is eerily similar to how the Roman Empire fell, what we're going through right now.
Yeah,
and I don't mean right now with this election. I mean like the last century,
Yeah.
I casted my vote to the Convention of States. It never failed at any time in its past. It has an outstanding track record. It actually got shit done. I would advocate checking out the Convention of States, probably, and also not only that, but also the advocacy of directly addressing lobbying and bribery. Because the political side of the private sector, you cannot bribe. But Jesse Ventura, when he was last talking to he was talking about the whole Chris Kyle or whatever, American Sniper case. Because see, what happened to him was the Chris Kyle was going around telling people he punched the shit out of Jesse Ventura and lying and making up stories about Ventura. And Ventura told him you better calm the hell down with that nonsense and that talk and own up to it, because if he got punched a certain way, he could have bled to death because he was taking Coumadin at the time the allegations were said. Well, the guy wouldn't quit his yapping his fucking trap, and he got a lawsuit done to him by just Ventura. Anyway, in the middle of that, in part of that story, he mentioned that the political side, through certain processes, I guess, bribery can be offered and taken.
Andy, you don't implement liberty. You don't implement libertarianism. You remove force. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
That's because those.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem that, to be fair, even libertarian presidential candidates have fallen for. Is, you know, the way you quote unquote implement libertarianism, if like you run for the presidency, is you don't implement libertarian policies. You do what Gary Johnson did when he was the governor of New Mexico. You dismantle government agencies and you veto everything.
Mm-hmm. They call him Governor Veto.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to do, or if you if you're in a if you become a governor and you want to minimize or strip down, government legislative institutions that are in your state, and at least partially privatize them to cut down costs, and gradually strip them down. That'd be, or something.
Some people have said being a veto won't work because Congress can overpower it with a 2/3 vote. But I think you pointed this out, that rarely ever happens. And if I recall correctly, bills that are passed into law without a president's signature are much easier to be declared unconstitutional later down the long run.
Yeah.
Because the president's signature is kind of like a seal of approval. Basically, it gives this idea that, well, if the president thinks it's a good idea, then we should leave it be. But if it passes without the president's signature, a lot of people are going to be like, why would they implement something like that? If President Crazy Butt doesn't like it, something must be up with this bill.
On a different election-related thing, how many of us think that Biden's going to serve out the 4 terms, or if he's going to very quickly be declared incompetent because the idea all along was to have President Harris?
That's actually, I mean, look, call me paranoid all you want. That is something I am legitimately afraid of, I was telling that to a lot of people. It's like, listen, if Biden absolutely must be president, nothing better happen to him until 2024, because for all the evil he's done, I'd much rather have him in office than Harris, because at the very best, Biden is an incompetent old man, and it'll just be like President Trump's presidency, where he talks but he doesn't do anything. Harris, on the other hand, she's kind of like Diet Hillary Clinton. She knows what she wants. She knows what she can do as president, and she sure as hell will try to implement that power.
Larry Milyazi, thank you. Defense Production Act. That was the act I was trying to remember the name of.
Oh, what was that again?
The Defense Production Act. That's what Biden wants to revitalize.
Well, he's going to have to go to the Convention of States to do it. He's going to have to hijack it because he's got a fuck ton of people all on the COS train that's against him.
Well, and considering that the Democrats lost one of the governor's seats and like a couple of the state legislatures, yeah, good luck with him getting a coalition of governors.
Yeah, good luck with that shit. And they tried to do, when they were trying to do that second wave of stimulus to the country, remember that?
Yeah.
Well, they were in Louisiana. There was John Bel Edwards was interfering with them. I heard, and there was some cases. And there was 2 cities that started signing petitions to recall Edwards, and there was some other rather shady shit going on. So they were trying to recall him. I don't know. I don't think it was successful, but the two cities that filed it got a lot of traction, though, but not quite enough to get the process started. Got traction, got attention.
Yeah, consumer. My tactic is just to get rid of the government's monopoly power and allow people to build out alternatives. Get rid of the legal tender laws and let people use Bitcoin or whatever they want, things like that.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to take down the government, just let people build alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Shane, it's one thing that always kind of drives my gears with a lot of people when they say, did you know that this company makes more money than the US government? And I'm like, okay, so what?
Stephen, the PCR test, the PCR test has an incredibly high specificity, which means that if you test positive, you have or at least had SARS-CoV-2, because that's the only place that RNA sequence is found. So now that doesn't, you're not infected with COVID-19. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. COVID-19 is the disease. You don't have COVID unless you have symptoms and you actually need medical intervention. But yeah, it means you've been colonized by the virus.
It's kind of like HIV and AIDS. HIV is the virus and AIDS is the disease.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So America loses. Yeah, this is true. We all said this. All four of us.
How can a company make more money than an organization that has the right to print more money? I'm not sure what he's
because when a
responding
company
to there.
makes money, it's legitimate money. When the government prints money, it devalues it.
Yeah, it's counterfeiting. It's taking wealth from everyone else.
Yeah. And here's another thing, and like I said, and why I'm not concerned when people say, did you know these companies make more money than the US government? And I'm like, well, yeah, but guess what? That company doesn't have the ability to arrest me.
There basically are no false positive rates with the PCR, but you have to understand what it's doing. It's actually looking for that RNA sequence, which means that the viral corpses can stay in your system for months after you fought it off. So you could have completely fought off the virus and be completely immune to it and still test positive on the PCR.
Yeah.
Now, false negatives are a different thing. It has like a 13% false negative rate. So. I would love to see a source for that Dark Soul about Joe Biden going against the crime bill. I would love to see a source on that.
I would too. That would actually be to say.
But everything I've seen from them is just deny, and especially denying Kamala Harris's record, as a prosecutor and all the crap she did in California.
Personally, Pimp, it's an exception.
Oh man, we have gone over the flagpole scenario so many times.
It's an exception to the rule arguments. It's a lifeboat scenario argument. It's also
it's
not really a valid argument.
It's not even a valid point of view about it, because change the point of view to the person in the apartment, and let's say it's a woman who's been raped recently or something like that, and she's really, scared and stuff like that, and she's got a gun to protect herself with. There's this guy trying to get in through her window with some cockamamie story about falling 20 stories onto a flagpole, which would be impossible. It would either rip his arm off or turn him to jelly. So it's an impossible scenario to begin with. Or think of it from the point of view of the people after the fact who actually have to implement the NAP and figure out whether or not she was on the right side of the dispute. It's like, yeah, he broke into my apartment with some cockamamie story about a flagpole.
Sorry if I sound stupid, but what's the flagpole scenario again? I haven't heard that before.
It's like you've got an apartment on the 20th floor and someone's fallen from the 40th floor and they grab a hold of the flagpole to save their lives and they want to come into your apartment, or actually I think they tell it from the point of view of the flagpole, and the flagpole guy, you're dangling on the flagpole, you want to come into the apartment, but they say, no, it's my property, I won't let you. The thing is, I think in Friedman's original scenario, he actually used the word apartment, and the tenant doesn't own the apartment. The landlord does, so it would be up to the landlord, actually.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right, consumer. It's like the flagpole scenario never happened, because that's another thing I hate too when they talk about.
It's an exception to the rule argument, so it's not.
It's not even an exception, because the question is, are you obligated by the NAP to let go of the flagpole and plummet to your death? That's not how the NAP works.
Yeah,
exactly. Basically, it's a strawman of the NAP.
Yeah, it reminds me of those people that try to play the dungeon master fallacy. They're like, an anti-society would be impossible. Why? Because I would buy everything. How would you do that? Well, because I would buy people. What if I don't want to sell? Then I'll send men with guns after you. How are you going to get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send in my army of orcs. Yeah, that's what it'll be.
Yeah.
This is what they love. This is what people. They say, what are you? So you're an ANCAP? I said, well, yeah, idealist. I'm technically I'm a panarchist, but idealistically I'm an ANCAP. Idealistically, and they said, well, what if I get an army of? What if I get my McDonald's army of African slaves? How? How are you going to do that? I'll monopolize weapons. It's like, how are you going to do that? They love this goalpost change, and I keep asking, how are you going to do these stat? And I strip them down. Then they try to go back and try to corner me. I'm like, motherfucker, answer this question. How are you going to do these very things one at a time, one by one? And I will openly, and I corner them with that. And then that's when they go to screeching. And it's glorious.
Yes, seriously, Andy, did you really have to ask that? Yeah, he's asking.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm both, because they talk about two different things. Agnostic asks what you know, and atheist asks what you believe.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing I do kind of hate, is when they try to pit agnostic and atheist and all that. Well, agnostic doesn't mean
agnostic means I don't know. Atheist means I don't believe.
Yeah, that's.
And then you have agnostics, which basically is it's cognitively meaningless because of the implication. So I don't care.
I think wasn't it Richard Dawkins himself who flat out said that everyone's agnostic to a degree?
Well, there are definitely people who claim to be Gnostic, like Ray Comfort claims, I know about this, and there was this other guy that Aaron Ra was responding to recently who claims to know absolutely that, so that's a claim to knowledge. That's Gnosticism.
Yeah.
As opposed to agnosticism, the A prefix meaning without.
Yeah, but
gnosis being knowledge. So if you're a Gnostic, you claim to have knowledge. If you're agnostic or agnostic, then you don't have knowledge. Without knowledge.
I think Richard Dawkins once said that, with the exception of like a few of those really diehard radicals, almost everyone is agnostic to a degree. Even a lot of religious people, if you press them, will admit that so a lot of the stuff in the Bible and the miracles do sound pretty ridiculous, and we don't know, and they're not entirely sure if it actually happened like that. But they still hold their faith in there.
There are plenty of agnostic theists, people who say, I believe, I just don't know for sure. But despite all of the claims from all sorts of religious people, I have yet to see, read, or even hear of a Gnostic atheist, someone who claims to have, full knowledge for absolute sure that there is no God.
Yeah.
Well, the closest that you have to the Gnostic atheist are like the really staunchly anti-theistic types. They're the closest you get to it. But
even they don't claim to have 100% knowledge.
No, they don't. But some don't claim it, but they think, well, I think it's provable. And then you go, what's your proof? Well, that's where you set yourself up. Oh, damn, I need to shut up now. And then that leaves them for that to be spun back on them. They strap themselves.
Hey, Al. Al's on.
Oh, yeah, Al-Bukshi.
Yeah, so basically under that criterion, I'm very much agnostic. Well, yeah, like I said, you can still be, a believer and still be an agnostic. Because, like I said, like Shane just said,
yes, actually.
Agnostic just means you don't know, So if you're agnostic religious, that means you're saying, well, I don't know for sure if God exists, but I believe he does,
And I mean, you could be a really devout believer, in every single tenet of, Islam or whatever, and follow it and really believe it, but just say, look, we really don't know for sure. This is what we believe because of our writings and our traditions, but
just don't say that in public. And if you do, you have to move. You have to move.
Well, he lives in like the Midwest, so I think he's fine.
I know. It's just a joke, because
Professor Jacobson Pimp asked me another question. Yeah, there is a science. Yeah, it is growing. Yeah, but
I don't think I'd really call Jim Jesus a libertarian, though.
Yeah, I've heard some bad things about him. So,
technically, he's a Friedmanite, which is technically, by technicality, he is a consequentialist libertarian. But the problem with it, at best, you might be able to make a good rule utilitarian, but then again, that requires a logical backed rule set to counter test your consequences against, which is why.
And then you become a deontologist, and you're no longer a consequentialist.
When you beat down the bush, eventually, yeah. So you down the road if you go down that road.
Oh, so you're like Obama
rules. Versus
Lyrium, there are a bunch of multipliers in Keynesianism, so you'll have to specify what you're talking about.
So
favorite war movie? That's a good one. It probably depends on my mood at the time. The Dirty Dozen is one that just came to mind. Yeah. That was a good movie.
Yeah.
There's a somewhat growing trend. There is a somewhat growing trend of it, Pimp. There is. To answer your question, yes, there is. But do I think it's? I don't know. I very strong question it, to say the least, because I am a Hoppian ANCAP idealist myself. So, and no, we ain't crypto fucking fascists. The ones who fucking tout that shit were never libertarian to fucking begin with. You got to have self-ownership and liberty first.
And consumer, it's Alfredo sauce over marinara.
Okay, and I'm just gonna. And Al says half my family's Midwestern. Oh, so you're like so your mom's like Obama. So you're like Obama, yeah. Because on Obama's mom's side, they're whiter than sour cream, but his dad's was a Muslim Kenyan.
Yeah, tactical. Yeah.
And
Stephen, the broken window fallacy was originally from Frederick Bastiat in the essay called "That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Unseen," and that's where Hazlitt got it from.
Yeah.
And no pineapples on pizza.
Yeah.
But tactical bacon. That's the meme. But we like to satirize the physical removal with throwing commies out helicopters and throwing fascists out helicopters into wood chippers. That's the memes. It's actually.
Yeah.
But that's not what it means. It just means just ostracizing or casting away if they violate the NAP, which is the most humane, way to say fuck you. You're no longer part of this association. You have
Dark Soul. Basically, there isn't a difference between communism and socialism, and Marx himself used those two interchangeably all the time.
Yeah.
So.
I think
today people are saying that socialism is what gets you to communism, and communism is the end result after you've set up your glorious workers' paradise. Which, good luck with that.
Again, paradise and utopianism. There's the core problem with utopianism, and I try to beat this over people's heads with a fucking book. Pop, pop, pop. It's the same problem as it's the notion of perfection. It is cognitively meaningless because we cannot conceive something truly immeasurable as perfection.
Now, this is weird. Quantum Infinity is saying that he never watches politics, and there's stuff on my channel other than politics, but yeah, it's heavily political. And he says, why are you topping my recommended? Which is weird because of a lot of my regulars and people who like my content say that I never get in the recommended videos. So I don't think it's any kind of I don't think this is any kind of conspiratorial shadow banning. I think YouTube's algorithm is insane. That's my honest opinion on it.
Andy Davis, let me first off, communism is not stateless. They claim to be, but the problem is democracy is not much different than a government. If it's not an arbitrary political authority controlling everything, it's a mob group, and that's what.
Well, okay, here's the thing. If you've set up your glorious workers' paradise where all the businesses are run by the workers, I set up a factory, own it myself, and hired people to work in it. What are you going to do to me? Either you're going to do nothing and let me do my own thing, which means you respect private property and you're a capitalist, or you're going to get people with guns to try and stop me, which means you're a state. It's one or the other.
And Shane, Dark Soul wants to really know what is socialism, and he's serious. He doesn't understand the difference, okay?
The difference between what?
Well, he's just saying he wants to know what socialism is. You know,
socialism is basically collectivism implemented.
Yeah.
If to have a really simple.
It's collective or communal ownership, means production, the whole 9 yards. Okay, if you like it to continue off of Shane Killian's piece about it, if he or I set up a private business or a private law community, what are you going to do? Are you going to be a Rothbardian and Kropotkinite and let it, which is what you would call that technically, Rothbardian Kropotkinite, and let us do our things? Or are you going to come at us with guns because that's your state? You're a state at that point. Take care, Quantum Infinity.
All right, thanks for stopping by, Quantum.
That state.
I think the algorithm is just insane. The analogy I've come up for it is, you guys know how Pandora works, right? You give it like, I like Pink Floyd, and so you make a station about Pink Floyd, and you really like prog rock, so you add in Peter Gabriel. But then you say, and there you've got a pretty good prog rock station. But then you say, oh, well, you know what? I like jazz too. I like classical. I like, modern pop. I like all this other stuff. And you put in all this stuff in there. Now the algorithm doesn't know what to do, and it's giving you all sorts of crazy music that you're like, why is it giving me that? Well, it's because you've given the algorithm so many contradictory things, it doesn't know what to do.
Yeah,
to answer your question, well, I want to make a, if you don't mind.
Were you asking Dark Soul or?
Yeah, so I'm going to respond to both Dark Soul and Andy Davis. Technically, you're an authoritarian if you want to destroy a capitalist organization. That you're not anarchist when you do that.
Yeah, you pretty much are a state when you do that, because a capitalist organization is just one that's set up based on voluntary interactions. And if you're forcefully intruding on voluntary interactions, you're a state.
Okay, and Dark Soul, I'm going to answer this. He says, is there different types of socialism, or is it all the same? Technically, there's different types, but practically, they're all the same.
In practice,
in practice, it always ends up the same way.
Yes, there's technically different types. Like there's national socialism, international socialism, aka communism, democratic socialism, but practically it all ends the same.
Now, you could technically make, say, a certain flavor of mutualism and then syndicalism off of it happen. And some form of anarcho-technocratic models, they could exist. But again, the question is, if a capitalistic private owner of their own property and they want to start business on their property, are you going to take it down by force? Or are you going to leave them alone? If you're going to leave them alone, then you're Kropotkinite Rothbardian or Rothbardian Kropotkinite in that sense. You're letting them be the capitalists be. Oh, and if you don't leave them alone, well, you're not really anarcho. You're just like a government.
Well, yeah, consumer. That's just what I said. Yes.
Well, yeah, I was given that it could be possible to make those three possibly work, but there's a lot of problems with them, and not just that question alone, but there's a lot of problems with that have to be sorted to actually even attempt it to make it work.
And Stephen
yes, they
Thompson
will.
wants a top
Yes.
10 reading list. I mean, superlatives are just so difficult to
Yes, they
answer because
will.
I'll change my mind. Yeah.
They will eventually become a bigger threat to it in the long run, yes. But Nick Fuentes is not a true paleocon. One moment he promotes the racist Hispanic stereotype, one moment by just acting the way he does, calls himself a paleoconservative, which he's not. Then he sucks off the fasci types and the alt-right screecher types to grift and narrative spin. He's a dishonest cunt rat piece of shit. Yes, he's a threat to liberty. The neo-absolutists are another threat to liberty, who he panders to quite as well. Yeah,
I'm not sure who Nick Fuentes is.
Nick Fuentes is the dude that said, "Oh, we need to lock up libertarians." That guy.
A lot of them are saying that now. They're now saying they want a list of everyone who's opposing the idea that Biden is our next ordained God and stuff like that.
Basically.
Cortez said that. All right, see you, Tactical. Thanks for stopping by.
Take care of Tactical Bacon. Thank you for coming by. No, Andy Davis, he's not a paleocon. He calls himself one, but he's a fake. If he actually were a paleocon, he wouldn't be so fascistic. But he is. He panders to fascists quite often. Paleoconservatives are not supposed to do that. But he is a fake. I'm technically, if I was to be a minarchist, I would be a paleoconservatarian. If I was to be a minarchist, but I have to make my own videos on explaining how that would pan out. But point is, no, Andy, he's not a paleocon. He's a fake. Calls himself it, but he's a fake. But yes, to answer that question, both of them are going to be a bigger threat to liberty in the long run. Yes, pimp. That absolutely.
I'm not sure what Liam means by safe, but yeah, he wasn't as consistent and principled as I would have liked for him to be.
That was Spencer. Spencer voted Biden. But he's butt buddies with Richard Spencer, the CNN contributor. That should give you another red flag. Another one that was pretty that was Spencer. CNN contributor Richard Spencer. Another thing too, I do want to address a little bit. Yes, consumer. He's that altoid. He's the altoid fake. Yeah, that's the alt-right guy. The fake. Yeah. Yes, to answer your question, yes, that's Nick Fuentes. He's and what's funny, you know what's ironic, guys? He has a sister who's a lesbian and has a black girlfriend, and he promotes the I don't advocate race mixing with blacks racist narrative, which is why I mentioned he promotes that racist Mexican stereotype and at the dismay of Mexican people. So, and then he's completely lenient with his sister doing that stuff and doesn't say a word.
Wait a minute, Richard.
Again, he's a grifter and a fake.
Wait a minute, Richard Spencer, was he, the guy who got punched in the face? He voted for Biden? If that's true, that's going to be really awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like you guys are evil fascists. It's like, then why did Richard Spencer vote for Biden?
I'm telling you, Andy Davis, he is LARPing as a paleocon and as fascistic spewer. I'm telling you, he is that very thing.
Well, it's pretty funny about Richard Spencer because everyone assumes he's quote unquote right wing because he's a fascist and all that. But it kind of reminds me of that one British guy who I can't remember his name, but he's a leader of the British Fascist Party, the British National Front Party and all that. And people are like, yeah, he's this right wing guy who's gonna take away all our liberties. And I'm like, if you look at him, he actually supports a lot of socialist policies.
No, Stephen Thompson, no. Woods,
I'm losing track
Mises
of the
Caucus,
chat.
Not even close. They challenged it. But the left love to quote mine 90% of a quote that Mises said about it, that it was like a temporary solution that saved Europe for the meantime, that it'll always go down in history for, but it was a short-sighted.
By the way, going back to Mises, here's another fun thing. People like to hate on Mises because he supported the Austro-fascist, party, which he didn't really. But I will say that. But here's the thing that also gets ignored is that yes, the Austro-fascists went after communists, but guess who their primary political opponents were? The Nazi Party.
Well, thank you, Dark Soul. That's really kind of the point of this. So it's nice when it actually works out like that every once in a while. Yeah. Doesn't happen that often, but hey.
Well, I'm glad. Well, Dark Soul, I'm glad you actually opened up and actually, didn't do what other people do and just, circulate a reason. You actually opened up and listened to us.
Oswald Mosley, I've heard of him. I've read a little about him a while back. Yeah, I've heard. I know you're talking about a little bit.
Lyrium said Friedman sometimes let his opponents get the best of him and ended up conceding to his arguments. Yeah, in those like little post-debate things. For the most part, he was good, but yeah, he gave them way too much.
I'm getting popular with the question asking today.
Yeah,
probably because you're the loudest of us. Yeah.
That's fine. I'm lazy. I'm perfectly happy to just lean back and let you guys run the
I talk a lot too, but the reason why Wes tends to dominate these is because like me, he's a talker, but he's 10 times louder.
You know what's fucked up? I have no ability to whisper. If I try to whisper, you can hear me 3 feet away. And if I'm
so you're like the Jack Officer from that one South Park episode. Okay, guys, we gotta rescue June. Dude, you need to be quiet and whisper.
That is me,
I am whispering.
That is me, sadly.
Yeah.
That's the fucked up part.
That was a funny episode. A lot of people hate that episode, but I think it was awesome.
Yeah.
But, it's like, let's call it Hope. Misa named June. I think it said its name is June. Yeah, Hope. That's a pretty name.
Here's another question. How can I have an active chat but 0 viewers according to YouTube?
I don't know.
More weirdness. Okay, never mind. Go on.
Speaking of,
that's great. My Dark Souls. Can I recommend if you for the intro, like the light stuff, check out every one of Shane Killian's quickies, and then gradually.
Oh, that would take you a while. There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of them, but let that be your start, and then work your way up to the longer, complex, more detailed vids. My favorites are how to argue for universal health care, and how to argue for feminism. Those are my 2 favorite ones.
I'm really proud of the healthcare one. That's one of those that I keep looking back going, yeah, I did a pretty good job with that one.
Skim, you're asking a question. Speaking of Nazis, what is your opinion of the Nakam? I looked them up. That was that paramilitary group of former Holocaust survivors who tracked down Nazis. And I'll say this, while I understand where they're coming from, I do agree that they shouldn't have done what they did, because the truth is, there's a lot of gray areas when it came to the Nazi Party, because the thing is, as much as a
lot of people joined the Nazi Party because they were forced to.
Well, yeah, exactly. A lot of people did it. A lot of people, especially in the camps, did what they did not because they hated Jews and they loved killing Jews and they were savages, because they were forced to. If you told your commanding officer, I am not going to kill these Jews, this is crazy, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get court-martialed and imprisoned and possibly shot and replaced by a guy who will do it.
Yeah, that's...
If you're not just shot on the spot.
Yeah, so that's why I disagree with the Nakam. In fact, and many people pointed this out, I think when there were some trials of the Nakam, it's like, listen, it's not your call to deserve, even if you do find a guy who was responsible for the atrocities, you can't just kidnap him and then execute him. That's not how it works. And if anything, that just means you're no better than they are. That's
okay, Pimp. I'll answer Lee's next 2 questions. The one, my thoughts on them promote the alt-righters promoting that. I don't know about that person, Alessandro Dugan or whatever. I don't know him. I don't care to know, because the altoids really piss me off. Passion. And to answer your other question, disingenuous. It's the only word I have to say. That's it. The only word. And I'm gonna do. I'm working on. Instead of doing a response script to them, I'm gonna do my own little video basics and Hoppian basics or whatever, Hoppianism 101. And I'm going to try to dispel a lot of myths, and I'm also going to throw shade at people who do criticize that, but they don't miss it by a mile. But the most I'm going to throw shade at are the actual internet fascists that claim to be Hoppian and all that. And I can give you a few. I'll give you some. You'll learn some secrets of mine. You can ask questions.
See you, Lyrium. Thanks for stopping by.
Okay. And
Schism, take care, dude. And you can ask. You'll be able to ask certain key questions to those who call themselves Hoppians, and you'll find out their true colors. I did some testing on people that now I found these out for myself. And then I did this. Okay, they're not really Hoppian, are they? They're just grifting with it, and that makes my blood boil really bad.
Okay, Schism. Depends on the if you were a Healy. For those of you that don't know, Healy is a nickname for a Hilfswilliger, which was a foreign conscript in the German army. But the SS, well, same thing, because not all the SS guys were, as racist and all that. Because again, yes, the SS was more voluntary, but a lot of the people in the SS, were often brainwashed, since they were children to believe in the Nazis,
Well, yeah, keep in mind the Nazi Party had been influential at least since like 1920. So they had kids that, they had grown up and completely indoctrinated it. And when the war was over, they actually had trouble. It was a long road for them to try and understand reality and get rid of all of the baggage they were indoctrinated with growing up.
That's why I disagree with the Hakam when they were going around, because basically the Hakam's policy was, if you were a Nazi, arrest them and kill him. But you can't do that, because like I said earlier, that makes you better than the Nazis, because that's how the Nazis acted. They said that Jews were destroying Germany, and if that were true, instead of finding the Jews that were responsible and bringing them to justice, they just said, from now on, if you're Jew, we're going to kill you because a handful of Jews did this. It's like, no, you don't do that. You don't do that. If someone is legitimately harming you, you go after the individual. You don't punish the associates of them unless they played a role. That's actually why the Adolf Eichmann trial was so controversial. It wasn't because people were saying Adolf Eichmann did nothing wrong. It was because the Israelis literally kidnapped him, dragged him back to their country, and basically put him on trial with little to no opportunity to actually get a proper legal defense. And many people agree, even other Jewish and Israeli politicians agreed it was a kangaroo court.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've looked up Adolf Eichmann, and while he definitely isn't innocent and he definitely did deserve to be punished, this idea that he was the big bad guy, about the Holocaust, that's not really true. From what I can gather, it wasn't his idea. Rather, it was they came to him and said, okay, we're going to do this final solution. We're going to execute all these Jews. It's your job to come up with how we should do it.
Oh, yeah, the Bordertarians, Andy. Yeah, they're infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah, when they think that that borders are the same as property lines,
Yeah.
Because let's face it, one thing I do agree with is that yes, there are gonna be borders in an ANCAP society, but the difference between borders is that they're property borders, they're not government borders.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between borders and property lines.
And
Wes Jacobson wants to know the name of your channel there, Wes.
It's Derpy Redneck, and that's Derpy Redneck, and that's it. I just replied to show you it. And I'm working on a bunch of stuff, a bunch of scripts I'm a few years behind on because of a lot of IRL shit happened, and I've got caught up in a lot of stuff, and I'm going to catch up on those first. And I'm going to do some stuff about that, and then I'm going to eventually go into finish those up. Then I'm going to start doing those like Hoppian 101 type videos.
Yeah, consumer. It looks like a disproportionate amount of them actually went for Trump this year. and blacks and women. So that's another reason people are kind of scratching their heads going, what? He's getting additional support from all these bases, and
You're welcome. Thanks for showing interest in me. And I hope I was helpful in answering your questions.
I love Bernardo de la Paz. For those of you who don't know, that's a character from The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite quote from that book is something he said, which is, "I am free no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, I break them. I am free because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything I do."
Yeah, I haven't read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, but you told me that that one humorously tragic scenario where the Moon people, in order to threaten the unified Earth government, basically say they're going to use this weapon. Now they're going to use it on a desolate, on a desolate area that has nowhere living on them for a while. They're just trying to demonstrate what it can do, and the world Earth government basically forces all these people into going there. And then when they drop their weapon because they don't have time to call it off, they go, "Oh, see, they attacked. They killed all those people."
Well, it was a mass driver. They were basically throwing a moon rock there. And once you get it going, it's ballistic. You can't call it. It's not like a missile or anything. There's no abort or anything. But I mean, they were right on the money. But the government and the news media got together. It's like, ah ha ha, they can't do anything. Let's all go to this place and laugh at them. Ha ha ha. And then they,
yeah. And then they're like, "Hey, you attacked us and killed innocent people unprovoked."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like, like a lot of the wars were in, like that one political cartoon I saw where they're like, "I don't get it. Why did this group destroy the Twin Towers? All we did was bomb their land, topple their government, and deploy troops on them. What did we do to deserve that?"
Yeah, the whole didn't do nothing crowd after 9/11.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying those people in the Twin Towers died, but come on,
I mean, you're not saying they deserve to die.
Yeah, we're not saying they deserve to die. We're just saying it was a consequence.
They did, in fact, die. We're not saying they were secreted away to an island somewhere like some of those crazy conspiracy theories.
We're not saying all that crazy bullshit, but we're saying there are people that did die, and it was a consequence of government's action that should have never taken place in the first fucking place.
Andy Davis, in my personal opinion, vegans are morally hypocrites.
Yeah.
Yes, they are very bad, and they're
and we're just not set up biologically to be purely vegetarian. Yeah. We're omnivorous.
It's pretty funny because everyone's like, "Oh, I know this guy who turned all vegan, and look, he's healthier than ever." It's like, yeah, well, look at Jordan Peterson. That guy is on an almost all meat diet, and he's looking better than ever.
No, he is on an all meat diet. He mostly just eat. I think he has to take vitamin C supplement because when you cook beef, cure it a certain way that does not have enough ascorbates in it, that the curry can just eat up vitamin C.
And another thing too that we also need to point out: the reason why Jordan Peterson's on an all meat diet isn't because he's trying to give the middle finger to vegans. It's because, if I recall correctly, a couple years ago he got really, really sick and he was going to Russia because they couldn't figure out, and eventually they discovered he had this rare autoimmune disease, and basically it meant he can't eat most fruits and vegetables.
Stephen Thompson says, "I tried to talk my wife into adopting the marriage structure of the lunar colonists, but no luck yet." Yeah, without getting too detailed into it, it's a polyamorous structure. So yeah, you can have a lot of wives, but ultimately it's matriarchal. So there's like this one wife who's the head of everything that you have to obey.
Yeah, you're right, Steve Thompson. You know what? I've said this before. I think I said it on here, but I know I said it at the Bugosity Discord. Excuse me. And I just had coffee too. Because I'm going to be filming a gameplay podcast.
Al-Bukhshi is talking about when other candidates jumped on Ron Paul. It was in particular Rudy Giuliani. And Ron Paul then did a press conference with the former head of the CIA Bin Laden unit where they gave Rudy a summer reading list of all of the things like that. And it was like the book on blowback and even the 9/11 Commission report and things like that where it all talks about how 9/11 was blowback for our foreign policy.
That's pretty good. That's an interesting exception to the rule about medical doctors and longevity. That's actually pretty cool. You know, my mother's side, my mother's people, not the ones that were tied to Ulysses S. Grant, just an uncle of mine, but.
Well, it's possible to be vegan, Andy. It's just really, really, really difficult, and you're not going to do it without relying on a lot of modern technology.
And a lot of fucking pill supplements. You're going to have to, you're going to be eating you're going to have handfuls of pill supplements.
And you have to make sure that the pill supplements are vegan, because like one of the big things they miss out of is B12, which is really important. B12 deficiency can actually make you go blind and give you neural degeneration. But a lot of the B12 supplements B12 is a product of bacteria, but the bacteria that makes it love to grow in animal fat. And so that's how they make it. And since it's, even though there's no animal fat in the pill, since it's a product made with it, it's not technically vegan. And so you have to try and find someone who's been able to synthesize it some other way.
To my knowledge, the only reliable vegan source of vitamin B12 is algae, but algae contains so little that you would literally have to drink an entire lagoon of it to get a really good healthy amount of algae.
Well, yeah, they have to extract it to make the pills, and it's really expensive and really.
Well, the thing is, what they have to do first, they have to get a certain culture that does not make certain algal toxins. They have to have a non-toxic strain of a certain species of microalgae. There's only certain ones they can harvest.
It's just a lot easier. It's a lot easier to use the ones that grow in animal fat.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then what they have to do is if they want to cultivate and mass produce a certain amount of it, they got to use these photobioreactors where they fill them up and they grow them and culture them and harvest certain amounts, and they got to dry it.
And here's another thing too, Andy, David. Despite what vegans like to say, you can eat meat and still love animals.
Yes, you can.
And here's the thing: you can easily kill anyone who's worked on a farm knows it's very easy to humanely kill an animal for slaughter.
It is very. I've done it myself. I had to do it myself. I've had to help do it myself a few times. I already know from her firsthand experience. I help people take care of cows. Back in the start of this lockdown.
I mean, if you do it right, you can slaughter a cow and they never even know anything happened because just all of a sudden they go unconscious.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, Shane. Like one vegan person tried to scare me by showing me a picture of, the captive bolt pistol, and you know what my response is? It's like, oh yeah, and the cow went down quick and easy like that. Compared to what? Like if it got killed by wolves, you know what wolves would have done to that cow? They would have ripped it apart and started eating when the cow was still alive.
Well, and that's the thing when they were setting free all the animals that were used to test makeup and things like that. Do you have any idea how those animals have it made compared to what they would be going through in the wild?
Oh, hell.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Now, a lot of people talk about conventional farming and stuff, but if you did a co-op with the corn growers and bean growers and planted fava beans in between the corn plants, the yields will go up with the same acre, so your land use can be cut by half or more.
And Stephen Thompson is a fellow Tar Heel, so
yeah.
But the corn that they use takes less water than the corn we use to make hominy and sweet corn and popcorn and all that shit for us. But so that's another thing, sir. And when after harvesting the beans, my arm popped. When you harvest the beans, the last harvest when the corn's ready, then you mow that down, let it decay in the ground, strip till it in after you harvest the corn, press the oil out. That oil can turn into a certain amount of biodiesel. That will allow increased engine longevity, less air smoke.
That's
well, and consumer, ironically, that's actually one of the reasons why Roundup is so good and the GMO crops, they can survive it. Because Roundup will be an effective herbicide, but it won't really have anything collateral going on. It won't, get into the environment and attack other species or whatever. It's
Andy,
really whatever you spray it on.
Andy, if you want to be for environment and social benefits, the last thing you want to be is a vegan.
And then the next thing you do is you press the oil from the said corn, then you feed it to them at the 20% of the dry weight by volume max, but make it wet so the food value will go up by 150 something percent. GHG emissions are going to be even less than before, and you could throw some small amounts of fresh cut grass onto that wet silage, then wet distiller grain then.
SKM, I think things like lab-grown meat and vertical farming would be great for things like space colonization. Where you can't really plant a farm on the moon.
That's also great too. But those are the main issues you have to do to actually cut water and land use at the same time and still have conventional method, but have grass-fed quality. That's what it'll take.
Here's my question. I asked all people when I tell them that veganism is actually worse for the environment. They ask, why is that? I just want to ask them this one question. Do you know how the workings of a farm go? And no, a little.
And Dark Soul, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's hard not to come to that conclusion when he promises things like true and nominal shop at a pressure.
Yeah,
and it's like, what?
And I'm just going to continue. Yeah, because listen, if you say that veganism is better for the environment, then you have no idea how the workings of a farm. Now, I'm not a farmer, but a lot of my extended family has been, have been farmers, and people say, well, veganism is also a source of resource because there's no animals, and we all know animals give off propane. It's like, yeah, but look at what goes into making a farm. You got to till the soil. You got to cut down trees to make room for it. You got to, unless you want to lose most of your crop to disease and pests, you got to spray them with chemicals. You got to do this and that, And here's another fun fact, vegans, you're still killing animals by being vegan because, like I said, unless you want to lose most of your crops to disease and pests and the like, you got to kill, the flies, rats, and all the other critters that are getting into your field and eating your crops.
Well, and especially if you want to be, organic, which there seems to be a big crossover between the organic people and the vegan people.
Organic's a fucking very loose term. If you've seen the minimum criteria that they call organic, quote unquote, you'll know it's just an empty fucking sales pitch.
Considering that a crop can be considered organic if the only reason that species exists is someone bombarded it with radiation until it mutated into what it is.
Yeah.
They're great, ruby red grapefruits.
They have a bare minimum for different so-called organic foods, a bare minimum of different pesticide and herbicide, chemical or naturally derived. They have bare minimum use. It's a fucking shit term.
That's another good example, consumer. A lot of those fruits and vegetables you get, guess what? They're not native to if you're an American vegan, they're not native to the U.S. and they can't grow in the U.S., so we have to import them. How are you going to get them over here?
Mm-hmm.
You got to ship them.
Exactly, Cole Phillip. You're damn straight. Especially
Hey, fusion is just 30 years away. Which they've been saying for the last 70 years.
It's also pretty funny, because people talk about how veganism is sustainable, and they're drinking things like soy and coconut, and they're drinking things like soy and almond milk, and it's like, people, almonds and soy are notorious for being water guzzlers.
You're right, SKM. Joseph Kraft. What was it? Was the idea of insulin being connected to disease? What was it? Was it too much insulin?
Well, and the thing about water is, the water isn't like used up. Water's like the ultimate renewable resource. It's going to go right back in and go back into the cycle. I don't really get why people talk about wasting water and things like that. That's a crazy idea.
Well, yeah, Andy Davis, but so do crops. Plants and vegetables. You need to deforest them to do that too.
Oh my God! Look at how much sugar is in like apples and oranges.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing too. People, just because people like to say, that meat is bad for you because it can give you heart disease and all that. Guess what? Fruits and veggies can be bad for you too if you eat them in excess.
No, Dark Soul, that is true. You won't have COVID-19. You might have SARS-CoV-2, but those are different things. It's kind of like how you can have HIV without having AIDS.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
In the comment section as well. Oh Lord, and True Deal Tom, back when he was a minarchist libertarian, he was okay. Then he just became a walking appeal tradition fallacy and a half.
Please don't mention the name; they might show up again.
Sorry, he asked me the question about my opinion on him.
Yeah, I did a debunking of him one time. It was God.
Certain so-called agorists, I know what you're talking about, Pimp, but he never was a Hoppian. He liked some of Hoppe's ideas, but he was not a consistent libertarian, which is a requirement if you're actually going to be a Hoppian. And he failed that core criteria. And they love to.
I think the main problem most libertarians have with Hoppe is like the covenant communities, because again, it kind of sounds like the people who are confusing property lines and borders.
Well, the thing is, a gated that you already have the covenant community in practice. When you have a gated community, because people can come together, it's like a homeowners association or a gated community. That's the border thing in practice. They have to voluntarily concede with it, or else it's aggression. If they don't consent to it, they can't have. It has all of it. The border's based on people's private property being voluntarily brought together, has to concede with the net, just like all the other stuff. And that is the big misunderstanding.
But how can you like kick someone you don't like off of their own property just because the rest of the community agrees with it?
Well, they can leave. They have to the physical.
Why do they have to?
Ostracism.
Why do they have to? Why can't they stay on their own property?
They stay on their own property, but they could leave the homeowners association. They don't have to leave their property.
My understanding is you can expel them from the area. That's my understanding of covenant communities.
Well, that technically you can expel them from the covenant community, but if you try to do it in a way that violates their property rights, then there's your contradiction. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Okay, Dark Soul. The reason why that's unproven is because it hasn't been around long enough. But so far, all of the predictions made by the people predicting immunity have borne out, and all the predictions of people saying the immunity will wear off have failed. Now, that's not to say that, it's not going to wear off after, a year and a half or whatever. But so far, if you're going to go with where the scientific predictions have been thus far, it's for lasting immunity.
Not to mention when he brings up the fact that once you had the virus, you're immune to getting it again. Well, that is kind of true. When you're immune, you're just immune to that particular strain of virus. If you recatch it again, that's because it's either mutated or evolved, so it's a little bit different than the one you're immune to.
Well, and again, it doesn't seem like it's that mutagenic, but again, after a year and a half, it might mutate to. I mean, it just hasn't been around long enough for us to know. But so far, the predictions of the permanent immunity hypothesis have been borne out, and the predictions of the immunity wearing off hypothesis have failed. So it's not a done deal, but that's where things are on the.
That's what I was trying to say. I got caught up, but yeah, you cannot kick someone out of a covenant community and violate the property rights, because that's when you trying to make yourself a state. That cannot work.
Also, going back to covenant property, I was telling this about Shane a while ago when I was ranting about raking leaves and mowing the lawn. people fail to realize the reason a lot of HOAs today get a bad reputation is not because they exist. It's because when you really look at them, 90% of the time, they're BFFs with the local county government. So when you hear those stories about how, an HOA, or sent a guy to jail because he didn't mow his lawn, no, they didn't do that. The sheriffs or the county government did that.
Yeah, consumer, that was something I said back when all this started. 20 years from now, are we going to be, vaccinating our children for SARS-CoV-2 or NCOV 2019, I think is what they were calling it back then.
That's okay. So the idea is, the problem is it's not really good because there's a lot of medical there's a lot of medical science and causal mechanisms established that, and a lot of very strong mechanistic stuff now. There's even books. A lot of a real big heart disease and diabetes risk is hugely can be hugely correlated or outright connected to high insulin. It's hyperinsulinemia is it can lead to those, but can lead to both.
Consumer, we just don't know because it hasn't been around that long. Generally, coronaviruses are not that mutagenic, so but who knows? But I mean, because the original SARS and also MERS, they've changed very little.
Yeah.
So
actually, no, Digicraft. It's not necessarily true. It's claimed, but the thing is, I
guess if what you're saying is true, Wes, then I don't understand what the point of a covenant community is.
Yeah.
Because then it's just a bunch of people.
It's a theoretical model that if you want to have a community of private property holders, and say a bunch of libertarians want to have a certain type of social order that they want to have. And that's also a big controversy because of how he worded himself. And one of those spots really pissed me off about Hoppe when he said there'd be no unlimited speech in a kinship-related advocating covenant community. You cannot advocate. He conflated advocacy and speech in that. That wording actually pissed me off with him, and he should have really thought carefully about it, because to speak of something is one thing, but to advocate. The advocacy is to push to make something happen.
Right.
Davis, if you're concerned with this issue, but what's caused the rise in autism recently in the last couple of decades, there's actually a reason for that, because we're getting better at identifying it.
That's it. There's not a greater amount of people with autism. We just understand more about it and know how to know it when we see it.
I mean, I think it's been famously said, there's actually now a lot of famous historical figures that a lot of psychiatrists now think if they were to come into us today, we would diagnose them as autistic. But because they didn't know about autism back then, they just said, oh, he's just loony, or he's got some other mental illness,
I don't know the latest on all the vaccines, consumer. Apparently Pfizer has one that they say they're ready to release, or close to it at least, but I don't know really anything about it. I think a lot of them, because there are vaccines that work on a lot of other single-stranded RNA positive sense viruses. And, so the idea is you could take one of those that we already know is safe and effective and just update the antigens, but it still takes a while to do all that and test it out.
Well, no, Schism, we didn't change the definition. We just recognized that now there's a spectrum, because even when autism was first being proposed, we used to think that autistic people were those people that didn't like being touched and they almost never talked, and they were not.
They thought it was a form of sociopathy.
Yeah. But we now realize that. There's actually a spectrum, and that most autistics are people like me and Wes. We can talk, we can interact with people. We just really suck at it.
I'll just type out the stuff real quick. But yeah, the CCs are meant it's a voluntary alternative to
it just seems to me that even if you get all of the property owners in an area to agree to something, it all goes to pot as soon as someone sells to someone else, and they buy their property, but they don't want to agree to that covenant.
Yeah, but that's the thing. you have to if you yeah, I could see that constructive criticism there, but that's the issue. Like I want to contact Hoppe himself, but it's hard to contact him since he's retired and stuff, and he's been working on his book, a new book recently. Because I did have people that showed me I could email Hoppe and ask him these questions and to do better on it because, yeah, because I do have some questions to ask about the CC. What if these kind of things happen? Kind of scenario, and I agree with Mr. Killian here that that one's a very good point. I would like to see.
Yeah. Fish from the shark. I want a can of beans for president. That's going to be one smelly can of beans because they would have to be 35 years or older.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure if we contact that one, I forget his name, but he's a YouTuber that actually takes preserved, old MREs that are from like the 1940s and he eats them, he might have a can around.
Dark Soul, I don't know how you're so far behind in the conversation, but agnostic is about knowledge, not belief.
Yeah. Yeah, you believe or you don't. That's whether or not you're an atheist. Agnostic means I don't know.
See ya, Andy Davis. Thanks for stopping by.
That's a cult that got shit canned and deserved it. And Kurt Doolittle is a Fed psyop piece of shit. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
Man West Pimp really likes you.
I suppose.
I think he just likes your accent. That's why he's directly asking you all these questions.
I don't know. I don't get it, but I think he's just a piece of shit. He's a psyop.
It's 11, so we'll be signing off as soon as Heather gets in. So it might be like 10-15 minutes, but
yeah, because Shane's got to give the wife some loving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, at his age, sweet loving is just cuddling around the TV and watching daytime television.
Hey,
I'm
not getting into it, but you are 100% wrong about that. You cannot possibly.
I'm just joking around. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, I just saw a comment like that one time. They were talking about The Secret of Love, and they were interviewing like this really old couple, and they did ask them the taboo question. It's like, do you still do it every now and then? And they admit that, oh, we stopped doing that when we were in our 60s, but it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, just snuggling up with each other every night. That's all we need now. But yeah, not to gross you out or anything, but it's been proven that people that age, do it. I actually saw that on a Reddit one time. They were asking, is it true that old people have sex? And there was one guy that says, as a urologist who's been working for over 20 years, I can confirm, yes.
You know what's funny about that? Most of the blue zone people, the way they die, they usually die in their sleep, wrapped up in each other's arms after having a hard course of doinking. So that's been statistically shown.
1 hour behind consumer. You must be on Atlantic time or something.
Yeah, they actually did. Yeah. A lot of people were asking, like, wow, it's true. You actually do that? How do you know that though? Because you're just a urologist. Like, because I've had people in their 60s and 70s come in and they're suffering from issues that you can really only get from bonking.
Yep.
Yeah, they come in. It's not. Yeah, that's a funny thing because a lot of people like to make fun of, male OBGYNs. They're like, oh, you're just in it because you get to touch a woman's inappropriate parts and you're just a perv. And he's like, oh, yeah, because I'm totally turned on by reaching my hand into a 70-year-old woman with a yeast infection.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel sorry for those guys because, a lot of people become doctors like that for legit reasons. They're not... Listen, people, being a doctor is not a pretty job. I'm not a doctor and I can tell you that.
I mean, it would be a bit like saying to someone, you want to be a nurse because you like giving people sponge baths. Well, I mean, think about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're... Yeah.
Can we at least destroy the time change, the daylight saving time thing? I think that's what's screwed up my pain. Because when you lose an hour, that means it's an hour later for me to take my pain medicine, and once it gets off like that, it's kind of hard to get back on the schedule.
And here's another fun fact they don't tell you. There is not a reason to do it. People say, "Oh no, the sun, goes down earlier." No, that doesn't explain it. There's no reason to do that. It was invented by status, And while the idea goes all the way back like to the 18th century, it was mostly dismissed, and it wasn't until World War I when they were trying to preserve coal that they were forcibly implementing it. Because they want.
And consumer, we can just use UTC time for everything. I mean, we really are anyway, and your computer is just translating it to your local time. So,
yeah, UTC time. That's like the military time. Like.
Well, it's Universal Time Coordinated. It's basically like Greenwich Mean Time only without the time change in the summer.
Oh, so it's not like the military time where it's like meet me in 1900 hours or so.
Well, I mean, it's a 24-hour clock, but I mean, the localizations, you can express it as however you want, AM or PM or the 24-hour time or whatever. You can display it however you want.
Okay, I'll take off now.
All right. Thanks for coming.
For having me.
You taking off too?
Yes, I've got to go film my own little podcast and catch up on my next episodes, and I'm going to do a few other projects. I got a few scripts to finalize. I got to edit that are a few years behind in info to be updated.
Okay, well, everyone check out Derpy Redneck on YouTube.
Thank you, and please subscribe to Mr. Killian, and do watch. This guy is. He's a hero we need, but we don't deserve a lot of the time.
Thanks, man.
No problem. But I do think we need more content out there, like your channel and whatnot out there.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
All
right, so I guess I'm just gonna go through the chat until I catch up, and then wrap up for the evening. Because, like I say, Heather's going to be home any minute, so. Yeah, Dark's like half an hour behind or something. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm too far behind. Let me catch back up. What do you think of finding a way to reverse aging? That would be cool. I like the idea of maybe not even full-on transhumanism, but, the idea of, immortality being you don't age and you don't have to worry about disease. I mean, you step on a landmine and get blown to pieces and you still die, but let's see. Yeah, UTC doesn't follow the dailies. Yeah, it's it's just consistent. And this thing keeps popping up. Let's see. Any computer not running with... Yeah, that's an infuriating thing, especially when you're doing a dual boot system, because with Linux, you can tell it to make the system time UTC, and then it'll translate. Windows insists on making it the local time. And I've seen a couple places where there's either a registry edit or a group policy or something like that will make it UTC. I haven't gotten it to work properly, and it's always thrown my clock off. Let's see. All right. See ya, Albukshi. Thanks for stopping by. Master of Muppets Ben Franklin was kidding when he did that. That was satire. Yeah, people keep saying, "Well, because Ben Franklin invented it." No, he didn't. He was kidding. It was a joke. Oh yeah, programming the time changes is the worst. I mean, thankfully, there are now standard libraries out there where you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Well, thank you, consumer. I mean, it's just I'm getting more subs, and if you look at all the different categories that they give you in the insights, I'm getting more subs than I'm losing. But there's this category other, which is weird. I don't even know what that is. And then there's the old accounts being deleted, and that's where the losses are coming from. I mean, remember, I've had this channel for, 13 years now, going on 14. So yeah, there are a lot of older accounts that are being up. But there's also that, I don't know what that other, because it seems like the other categories are pretty exhaustive. So I don't know. Most of my losses are from those two categories. All right, let's see. Thank you, Dark Soul. Please check out my channel. I'm sure a lot of your questions have been answered in a lot of previous videos. So let's see. All right, looks like I'm caught up. Thank you so very much, everyone, for participating in this and watching. And thanks to everyone who did a super chat and got me a little bit of money. And if you think this is worth something, that top link there, donate.bogosity.tv. All sorts of ways to give. You can donate with PayPal or even just a few pennies in crypto. Every little bit helps. Or become a Patreon or Subscribe Star, a regular subscriber, and you can actually join in the voice chats in these. Okay, more comments going by. Yeah, that's just everyone saying see ya. Yeah. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll, these next couple of months until we get our new president won't be I'm having fun myself. I think this is hilarious, but a lot of people are stressing out about it. Please don't. There's so much more to life than this, and life is so good. Life is so worth living. So thank you so much. Just be entertained by everything. Oh, thanks so much, Darius, another $2. Yeah, I like Eric July. I subscribe to his YouTube channel. I'm not really into hip hop, so I don't really listen to his music, but I like his YouTube channel. Yeah, it's Young Ripa 99, something like that. I don't think I have that right, but yeah, you can search around for them. Thank you, Darius. Thanks everyone for watching. Until next time, stay strong